207. That means we have to perform as well as the building committee, Board of Education, in the town. And with that, Noella, if you call the roll.
Tim Slocum.
Here.
Doug Walsh.
Here.
Peter Talbot.
Here.
David Burley.
Present.
Jim Jinks.
Here.
Sandy Pavano.
Here.
Don Malone. Sylvia Nichols.
Here.
And David Beliver.
Okay, let's rise to the pledge.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, so far, so good. Tonight, we have, we're starting with a presentation under public communications of the AARP Age-Friendly Community Service Results Summary Presentation. We have Michelle Picarello. Michelle, wonderful to see you in person once again. I used to watch her go into the mailbox.
Saw the lights across the street. I thought
No longer we're there cleaning out your office.
No, I think they might still be there painting, I don't know.
I thought my cross the street.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having us too. So with that, let's dish up what you're gonna talk about.
Okay, so I want to thank you for the opportunity to share a summary of the AARP survey results with you. I do need to mention that I cannot take any credit for this project. Although I'm here sharing the summary with you, Stephanie could not be here, but Stephanie Thoreau and her senior center staff and the senior living subcommittee of the Youth and Human Services Committee have pioneered this project in such an amazing way. And I'm so proud of what they've done here. So I just want to make sure I give credit where credit's due. So I'm just a spokesperson tonight and can't really take credit for any of this really. So you should have all received a copy of the survey summary in your agenda packet and hopefully had some time to review it. I'm going to share some highlights with you and go over sort of what we've gleaned from the data we collected and how we plan to use it moving forward. So we currently have over 3,000 members registered with the Senior Center, and the survey was certainly offered to them, but it was also distributed community-wide and on distribution lists and through social media, so there were a lot of opportunities to participate in the survey. We did have over 500 people participate, which is actually a really strong number for a community survey like this, which targets a particular demographic, so I was really impressed with the outreach here. 72% of the survey respondents were 64 years of age. Most of them were between 64 and 80 years of age. So we did not get a lot of feedback from the younger seniors in our community, which we're taking note of, and do want to target that population with future outreach. 67% were married or living with a partner. 54% of households had an annual household income less than $100,000. 46% were higher than $100,000. And out of our respondents, 54% expect to be taking care of a loved one in the future in an unpaid manner. So that's quite a high number as well. So I wanted to highlight some areas of improvement that we noted from what was collected. Survey respondent indicates that they would like to see separate pathways for bicyclists and pedestrians or more of those. I know we already do have some. Affordable, accessible, and age-friendly housing. I'm not surprised to hear this at all. Housing in our community is becoming more and more of an issue, particularly affordable housing, as I'm sure you've heard. And so that's something that we're going to be paying particular attention to in the upcoming few years. And then conveniently located entertainment venues is something that was also highlighted as a weakness of our community, which I thought was really interesting given what we're doing in Bartlett Park and some of the changes that are being made. So I feel like we're already moving in that direction with Ball and Socket and the Great Lawn and things like that. So I think we're already moving in that direction to improve in that area, but there's probably more that we can still do. In terms of areas of strength, which we had a lot, we're already doing a lot of the right things on our senior services areas. We have well-maintained streets, easy to read traffic signs, well-maintained parks, safe parks. People feel safe going to the parks in our community. Accessible public buildings and spaces, meaning for people of all abilities. Conveniently located emergency care centers and well-maintained health care facilities, which are particularly important for those residents who are seniors. And affordable and conveniently located public parking lots and areas to include handicap parking, which is something that might not occur to you as a need, but it's something that we're doing really well in this community. You don't have to pay for parking really anywhere here, and that's really appreciated by our senior population. In terms of the area of transportation, Although 95% of respondents indicated that they drive themselves and only 8% indicated that they utilize a transportation service like the senior center, our senior transportation service has over 500 users who use it on a regular basis. And in fiscal year 2022, we provided over 10,000 rides to people. So still very active, even though only 8% was identified with the user. In terms of community ratings regarding transportation, although we received good to excellent ratings, we realized that we need to do a better job of raising awareness about this service, as many respondents indicated they were unsure of how to rate our community. And this is kind of higher numbers of people who are saying, we're not sure what the community's doing, something that we're paying particular attention to. In regards to health and wellness, 70% of the respondents indicated that we have conveniently located health and social services, which is really important to the seniors in our community. And again, although we received good to excellent ratings, people still were unsure about how to rate our community in this area. In terms of social participation, inclusion, and education opportunities, this has been identified as a huge strength of our community. We have a lot of offerings. 91% of our respondents identified that they have regular contact with family, friends, and neighbors who don't live with them. Over 70% of our respondents indicated that they rarely or never experience a lack of companionship, feel left out, or isolated from others. And 91% of respondents indicate that if they were in trouble, they have family or friends who could help them any day or night. To me, this section was really encouraging. One of the goals of our senior services department has always been to make sure that we are engaging our senior residents, helping them feel connected, making sure that they have social outlets and educational opportunities, and it appears that we're doing this very well. In terms of community engagement, 65% of the respondents are using parks and recreation services, which I found really interesting. Yeah, so that's a lot. That's a really high number. 46.
It's all pickleball players.
Yeah, maybe. I know. That's all the rage these days. 46% of the respondents indicate that they use local organizations and businesses, and 46% use online programs. And what was really encouraging about that 46% is that we've made a concerted effort in the past few years, especially with COVID, to try to introduce our seniors to online platforms and get them to utilize them. And it looks like we're moving in the right direction with that as well. 58 of our respondents rate our community as good or good to excellent in our offering of continuing education classes or social clubs to pursue new interests, hobbies, or passions. So we received good to excellent ratings there as well. But again, there were a larger number than we would like to see of the respondents who indicated that they were unsure of what our community is offering. In terms of volunteering and civic engagement, 51% report that there is a wide range of volunteer activities to choose from. I think many of those come from the senior center as well. And again, more than half of the respondents indicated that they were unsure as to how to rate our community in this area. Our community has a lot of strengths in terms of being an age-friendly community. And again, really encouraged by the response to this survey and the participation. That's a huge sign that people are in touch with senior services and connected there. And there are a lot of things that we're doing really well. And so one of the things that we're going to make sure that we do moving forward as a result of this survey is really focus on our marketing and promotion of our activities and programs and making sure that the seniors in our community are aware of what we're doing and finding new ways to reach them. We do right now for our seniors who are shut-ins and are not able to get out, we are doing transportation evaluations where we're going into their home. And that's something we started a couple of years ago. And I feel like that is going to be a way for us to reach those people who might not have access to online platforms or to go to the senior center to sign up for something. So hopefully we'll be able to reach them through those evaluations, but also looking at unique ways to get to people through maybe healthcare facilities, which we're not doing right now, or even doing some more personal outreach. We were going out into the community events to promote what senior services is doing. But overall, this has been a really positive process. Really happy with the work that our senior services division is doing on this, and I'm really proud that we're involved with this program and this opportunity.
Go ahead, Peter, and then Sylvia.
Okay, go ahead.
Not a question, Michelle, but a comment. As I was going through this when the packets came, I know you said there's areas for improvement, but I was incredibly impressed with, we are starting from a great place.
Absolutely.
So while there's always areas that you can improve upon or things that we can focus on, this is really positive and says a lot. So even though you're not going to claim responsibility for the survey, you can claim responsibility for some of the results that are in here. And, thank you for what you do for the community.
you should know that we have a senior services coordinator in Stephanie who makes sure that she stays current, that she is out and connected to state, local, and national resources on a regular basis. She is really on top of her game. We are very lucky to have her in this community, truly.
And my comment, if I can jump in, I sat with Stephanie last week because I knew this was coming out and we had long conversations. And as part of that community, a lot of the respondents were 64 and over, and that's fine. And you said the younger, older people don't have a way to know what's going on. And I think part of the reason that they don't understand it is many of us are very independent and we're lucky enough to have resources or educational backgrounds or whatever to discover on our own some of those things, and we tend to be independent and say we can figure it out ourselves. So we don't depend on you, so that's why we don't. So I think maybe that's one of the reasons. But I have started to participate in some of the activities, and you all should have come. Anybody who was over whatever the age is, 55 could have come to the ice cream emergency that was last week, and they had lovely ice cream sundaes. And I did, and I'm involved in the book club now, and that's kind of fun. So, and it's interesting the range of people and levels and education levels and so forth. So I'm absolutely impressed by what's going on up there, and so are the people. So great job.
Jim and then Sandy.
I had a question about the transportation. You mentioned we do 10,000 rides a year.
Last year, and it's around that number every year.
And it's 500 plus individual riders or something.
We use it on a regular basis.
Do we have enough resources? Do we need more resources in terms of transportation, do you think? Or are we maxing out in that department? Or?
We can always use more resources, but
I mean, in terms of
I think we have enough vehicles at this point, and we have enough staff, yes, to manage the transportation needs at this point. We are awaiting a new bus that we received a grant for, I think in 2019, and we still have not received that bus yet. So supposedly it's coming in the spring, so we'll be receiving one new bus. And then we're actually using ARPA funds to purchase another vehicle that we'll be able to use that can transport fewer people longer distances. So so we're looking forward to that. So I feel like we're well.
Okay, I mean, it's got to be an important piece of that.
Yeah.
Feeling included in the social aspects of it, as well as just being able to live their daily lives.
Absolutely. Yeah. And our transportation services division has really expanded to the point where, we're doing things like delivering sometimes food from the food pantry to people who can't get there, things that started during COVID that we haven't stopped doing. And as you may know, the state is cutting some of the food assistance programs. And so in an effort to mitigate that, we're really trying to make sure that we're connecting people better to the center to get meals or to the food pantry to get food, because we don't want the food insecurity issue to become worse as a result.
Okay, thanks.
Sandy.
Thank you. I'd like to piggyback on what Peter said. I think we as a community can be very proud of what we have here in Cheshire. I know the council always supports this community, but it's really wonderful to see how they answered a lot of these questions. Sunday, I spent some time with some people in Hillside Village, and I have to say that they're very energized, and most of them do spend a lot of time at the senior center, so it's very well welcome. And as a council member, I would always support this community. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Just briefly, this has certainly come a long way from when the municipal agent for the elderly, Selina McArdle, had your office and was next to the healthcare where we have public health, the town ran, and instead of the Chespercott district. But I think this bodes well for the community that we have, that you're able to see what the needs are and anticipate them. Because I know you have a great board of directors over there. They're very in tune to the community. They've got a lot of different experiences and professional experiences that they're able to bring and help. And I think you've done an excellent job playing with that, working with that, and using what you have to meet their needs. Thank you.
Thank you again. And I agree with everybody. I mean, you and your staff are doing a great job. It's just first, I want to thank you for not using the word elderly anymore.
I'll second
It's a pet peeve of mine, because as I get older, I don't want to be considered elderly until I'm like 95.
Yeah.
But
You're eldest.
Jim was mentioning about the bus transport. Do those buses take some of these people outside of the town too? And how far out do they go?
We go to New Haven, Waterbury for medical appointments typically.
Okay, all right. Only,
Wallingford.
yeah, the only reason I have a mother-in-law who lives in Florida, and their town doesn't do that. And
Yeah, right.
so,
There's specific days that we go out of town to
Uh-huh.
specific towns, so you have to sign up on that particular day and make your appointments that day, because we don't have enough to go out
Correct.
of town every day.
Right.
But there's, I think, 2 days a week that we go out of town.
and you might change that when you get the added
Maybe, yeah, if
bus
we
and
can,
other
certainly.
van. Okay.
Yeah, we are, with that service, we really are able to be very responsive to the needs. So it's more like we, one year did Saturday grocery shopping, because that was a need that was expressed to us. And so we did that for about a year, and then it kind of petered out and we stopped doing it. But we're able to be really responsive. We're very lucky in that way.
All right, thank you.
To follow just up on that, I know that the afternoon time is difficult for people. If they have an appointment that starts at 2 or 3
Mhm.
in New Haven and your transportation ends in the afternoon, is there any thought to extending those hours?
Yeah,
for that? I mean, is that something you might have to look into?
If
Because-
there's a need, for sure. I will say this, there are other transportation services that do New Haven as
Okay.
well. But you're right, ours shuts down at 4 o'clock, but we would never not transport somebody home, right? So if somebody was at
Yeah.
another appointment,
Well,
wouldn't
we all
leave
know
them
the
there.
medical
Yes,
system,
yeah.
and you can wait
That's
for
very
your
true.
2 o'clock
So-
appointment and not go
Right.
in until 4:30.
we do try to make sure that we schedule appointments in such a way that they're done before 4 o'clock. But if they're not, we will keep a driver on overtime, or we'll call a substitute driver to come in. We have a handful of substitute drivers as well, so we're able to
We
accommodate.
won't
Yeah.
leave them there till
No, we
tomorrow.
definitely will not. We won't leave anybody there. For sure.
I just had a few things. I do remember it's probably 2 or 3 budget cycles ago where you were both in and were actually sort of informing the council at the time about how many people needed the services provided by the senior center for just filling out tax forms and things like that that were tremendously important. And I recall at the time thinking, I was really amazed by that. Not because I was doing it myself, or I just don't think of that being something that people would have jumped on because the service was available. And I think we did what we needed to do, made sure that whatever was needed was prepared and done at your recommendation. I think we've always been pretty good at paying attention to these needs. But I think the overarching thing is the fact that as someone like me and others within this group have joined that category, I'm still not called. I still don't go. I will though, undoubtedly
should.
someday. No, I just think it is good that we do all of these things, and it's good that we get the feedback that it's gone well. As to the housing, I think you said it was about roughly 75% of the folks are still in their own home. So we're not dealing with respondents from Southwick necessarily, or is that somebody that would consider that their home and that's how you counted it?
Southwick would be your own home. I think
Okay.
somewhere like
But clearly Elam or
Elam,
Mark
like
Ridge,
assisted
something like
living,
that.
right, that would be
That's- That's very different. So we're really getting people that are in a resident.
Yes.
They're-
And we did target those facilities with the
Okay.
survey.
Okay.
I don't know what percentage we got back from.
And I get that.
Yeah,
I
but-
understand that. I'm just trying to, represent
Yeah.
to everyone in the room that that's sort of where we grab the information
Yes.
from. And that these are basically resident taxpayers living in a home
Mhm.
that has probably a more modest price, certainly a more modest income,
Mm-hmm.
household income. And that's all good because the responses are actually fairly positive. The other thing I wanted to ask, because it kind of dovetails with our initial conversation that took place when we were talking about blight.
Mhm.
And when blight was not the issue, it was how to keep someone safe in their home that has a different issue. And among that was the elderly in
Mhm.
some cases. How do you think that has worked out with a population in town that really has different needs, and that's why there's blight? I mean, has that been an okay thing? I don't mean to change the conversation completely, but that was a big thing in the early days of blight.
Yeah, well, so the blight piece really came out as a result of a hoarding incident, right? That
Exactly.
And so we tried to sort of target both areas, right? So we have, we partner with Chestercott, with the PD and fire on hoarding cases. And now with the blight ordinance, what it does enable us to do is our zoning officer can come to me and say, is that his title, Mike's title, zoning officer? I feel like it's changed or something.
He's got a slash.
Yeah, but he's able to come to me and say, I was out at a house on this street, that the residents are elderly, we have a blight complaint, can you come out there with me and visit these people? And I do, and then we come up with a plan to help them, because oftentimes if they are elderly, they're not capable of cleaning up their own property. And sometimes there's financial constraints, so whatever the case is, we try to find a way to help them get to where they need to be to resolve the complaint, but also to make sure that they're safe. Now, the other thing that I'll say is a lot of the hoarding incidents, which are really the unsafe situations, those are inside. You're not necessarily getting blight complaints on most of those because most people don't know they're happening. Those are very hidden cases. And so with those cases, we do handle those quite differently and really have to take a mental health approach to those cases. But we've connected with a cleaning service that does this as a specialty. And so when I go out on a hoarding case as a result of a fire or something that we get called out there, we're able to connect people with a cleaning service and help them set that up. And their experience at dealing with hoarding cases, so they know how they have to proceed. So it ends up working out. We've had some really successful cases in town resolving hoarding situations.
Well, as a follow-on to that and relative more to the survey, would you be able to just glean from this survey result that the health of the senior community is at a high level?
Yes, I think we're seeing all really positive things. I think seniors are happy living here. They feel safe in our community. They have a lot of opportunities for engagement. So yes, I think we're doing really, really well. And I think seniors they're really doing
We're doing our best.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much. Any other questions? Thank you, Michelle.
Before I go, I just want to take a minute to thank you for your support of our department and our move into our new building, which we are in the process of packing up to go. Saturday, the furniture is being moved and we should be opening up October 2nd. And I'm just really excited and so grateful to the council for your support and acknowledging that we need this space to serve our residents. So thank you.
That's great.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm busy Saturday, I can't.
I was gonna say I'm out of town. Okay, now there's a presentation at the bar, no. It's a presentation on the bar planning grant, West Main Street District Planning Project. And with that, I welcome our economic coordinator.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andrew.
Happy to be here. So I was asked to come in to give an update on the bar planning grant. Before I get into it, I wanted to refresh everybody's memory as to what the ultimate goal here is with the project. But first, I'd just like to draw your attention to the bottom left-hand corner. So this is the branding that the steering committee that was established for the bar committee has come up with. Still subject to some tweaks and change for colors and whatnot, but ultimately the idea with this is for the signage and for things in the district to have this West Main Street district with the date 1827, thanks to Diane Calabro. That is the date that the beach board stopped moving on the canal right at the Balzac site. So with that, I'm going to give you guys a little refresh here. So what is a form-based code? So at the end of this process, what the whole idea here is that planning and zoning will adopt a new code for this district, which I'll show you the exact extent of the district. So form-based code is a way to regulate development that controls building form first and building use second, with the purpose of achieving a particular type of place or built environment based on a community vision. So just keep that in the back of your mind. So conventional zoning arose out of the need to protect public health and safety and welfare by preventing the most negative impacts of site and size and use of buildings. Importance is placed on where uses are located versus how they interact with the built environment. So that's the conventional zoning, which covers the area now. So lots of words up here, and so basically I'm just going to break it down like this. What the whole idea here is to adopt a code that will cover the West Main Street area, which we're going to show you exactly what those properties and sites are going to be. Instead of focusing on strict zoning, saying this property has to be residential, this property has to be commercial, this property has to be retail, it's going to allow for a mixture of uses on specific properties within the overall district. what those, by the town allowing this to happen, what we're going to do is we're going to control building size, scale, what it looks like, how everything interacts with one another, signage, landscaping, all of those types of uses on a given piece of property. So the whole idea here is to create a walkable and livable mixed-use town center centered around the Ball and Socket property, which is the centerpiece of West Main Street. So all that makes sense so far? Okay. All right, well then I'll go on. So how is the form-based code developed? So a series of public meetings will be scheduled that will be used as visioning and scoping in order to develop the regulatory structure that conforms to members of the community and property owners of the district. So over the better part of the past 6-7 months, we have established the BAR steering committee, which we have met with over 17 of the individual property owners in the district with one-on-one meetings here between town staff as well as SLR, who's our consulting firm who's working on developing the form-based code. Here, with all of their input in, there will be a design shred that will be held at Revlin Interactive on October 16th, where we will have a full meeting like we did with Bartlett Park. We have the board's visioning in order to get the public's full input back to the planners to then come up with what we're going to look to see in this entire district. So what communities are using form-based codes? There are several communities that develop form-based codes in Connecticut: Hamden, Windsor, Canton, Hartford, and Simsbury, to name a few. So I'm just going to get up if you don't mind. So this is the BAR planning district. In the south end, we have Cornwall Avenue here. Along the eastern edge is Willow Street, up to Warren Street, all the way to the east, and then Ives Row to the west.
So
and then
north is to the right.
say again?
North is to the right.
This is north. Yep. So this is the back of the Strollo's properties here, we're commonly referred to as. In the center of the district is the Farmington Canal Heritage Trail. That's really the centerpiece of the entire plan for this area. So centering all of the uses, not so much only along West Main Street, but also centered along the canal trail, Farmington Canal Heritage Trail. 207,000 people used this crossing last year alone, which is the heaviest used linear trail crossing in the state of Connecticut. So there's a lot to be said about that and centering all of these uses here. Now, we've met with property owners from some of the smaller guys here on Cornwall Avenue up to the larger industrial tenants over here at Dalton Enterprises, to some of the lumberyard property owners as well as the Strellos. And then most, if not all, we have maybe 2 more to talk to here on the West Main Street property owners that face that have the frontage on West Main Street. So progress to date. So we established the BAR steering committee, and that is made up of both town staff as well as neighbors, as well as business owners in the district. We drafted a request for qualifications, which was issued. We received 4 different responders who came in for that. BAR steering committee interviewed all selected SLR as the firm to help guide the project. Several days of interviews. We've had 4 days of back-to-back interviews in this room, including today, which I've been talking to people stay through this morning. I seem a little tired. And today we had 5 meetings, and I have to just report back to everybody. Of everybody that we have met with, everybody's feedback has been positive, because what this means to them is that they're going to have a greater amount of use for their property. So if they have a piece of property that now is just retail, if they were to come into the town and say, hey, we'd really like to do some residential use on this property, we would say, sorry, your property is zoned C1, you're not able to do that. By adopting a special code for this district, all of these properties in this district will have greater flexibility in uses for their properties. What we're not trying to do, we're not trying to take anybody's property through eminent domain. We're not trying to remove their uses of what they can currently do on the property. And we're not trying to change the area so much where we have pretty important taxpayer and employer located throughout the site. We don't want to make it so prohibitive for them to be able to continue to operate in there. Even if some of us might think that we'd rather see different things in the district, we still have to be mindful as to what is here. I don't want anyone to think this is like an overnight thing that's just gonna all of a sudden it's gonna just populate and grow. This is kind of a long-term roadmap to help guide the development in the area. DECD came down and met with us last week. We had a very successful meeting with them. There were 4 other communities that had these types of grants awarded, so that was part of the DECD funding process, and went furthest along. So we're doing pretty good. So after we complete all of the different meetings with all the property owners, there's a story map which I'm going to show you, and then a brochure to help with the educating the public on the different goals of the process. And there's a community meeting at October 16th at Revel, which time TBD, which we'll let you know on that. SLR is going to work with all of the information that they've been able to gather to develop the code and the design standards for the district, which will help guide uses moving forward. And then it's gonna go through the regulatory process. There'll be a workshop between this board, this council rather, and planning and zoning. And then the goal is to have whatever planning and zoning decides adopted by the end of first quarter of 2024. So it's a pretty aggressive timeline. I think we're gonna be fine getting through it. We've had a really great success with getting people in here to meet with them, to explain to them what's going on. This is one of the first, this is gonna be a trifold here that talks about, the town of Cheshire was awarded this bar revitalization planning grant from the Department of Economic and Community Development. We provided, just to remind you, a $10,000 match. The state awarded us $90,000 for the planning effort, which is going on now, which we're using to compensate the consultant and the architect. So there's an architect, Patrick Quinn Architects out of New Haven, which is partnered with SLR to work on the design standards for the structures in the district. And then this is basically all just about what the form-based code is that I just went through with all of you. So you will all receive hard copies of this. And then there will be a website which will go live. Did it actually go up? Good. So this is ready to go. There's a couple little tweaks on it, and then I just wanted to show all of you this evening. And we'd really like to get this live and linked to our town website this week. So on here, this walks through the project introduction. You have the design charrette right at the top to let the public know what the whole plan is, what we're looking to do, a link to different DECD brownfield grants, the process, the link to the brochure that I just showed you guys, and then what the bar plan is, what form-based code is, and what it isn't. And then really this bolded paragraph here, this was actually in our grant application to the state, and it comes back and says the bar planning grant will be used to prepare a form-based code, encourage adaptive reuse of existing properties, flexibility in the type of uses, and develop design guidelines for facade improvements, streetscape, wayfinding signage, and other public-facing amenities that contribute to creating an active town center. And if you go back and you read our plan of conservation and developments that have been issued over the past 30, 40 years, the one thing that it comes back to a lot of things, but one of the focuses that they kept pushing the town towards was to look towards West Main Street to create the town center that we so desperately want and isn't going to be able to be created here on Route 10, so to speak, with the walkability and the ability to have a mix of uses. It's got the project location map on here so everyone can see where their properties are, explains what a form-based code is. Some really neat pictures of the West Main Street area from a historic perspective. Again, thanks to Diane Clabro and the Cheshire Historic Society for that. Timeline of the history of the area. And then this is kind of a neat then and now showing what the area looked like in 1934 on the left. So here you are in 1934, and then drag this across to 2003, and you can see open development of the area in its entirety. This site will continue to be updated as we move through the community engagement with the outcome of the design charrette, and then as we start working towards the form-based code, everything will be populated onto this website here. So that's where we are, where we're going. We went through that, so if there are any questions that you have to answer.
Very, very nice
Yeah.
presentation.
Sorry if I'm talking really fast.
No, that's fine. We'll slow you down.
You started out slower this morning.
Yeah, well, that was 7:30 this morning when I did
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
It's okay. That's why they call it work.
It's 12 hours.
I just wanted to open it up for questions. I have a few, but I'd like anyone with questions to feel like this is one of the better opportunities. While we've got pictures in front of us, so go ahead, Don.
Listen, so what you're looking to do, are you looking for, we all know Ball and Socket is currently working on the whole plan, but there's many other businesses in that area that are you looking for them to perhaps do facelifts on their property, change the look, is that what this whole thing is about?
So we're not going, if somebody is looking to do changes to their properties, then there will be design guidelines for those changes.
Right.
We're not gonna go to, say, a property owner and
And
say,
tell them you have.
hey, look, you need to change
Yeah,
your
okay.
sign. That's not what this
No,
is.
But if they decide that they're gonna upgrade their property, do something to it, they have to follow the guidelines that you guys have set forth, okay?
True. And what's been interesting is that with meeting with a lot of the property owners, a lot of the individuals there will point to other properties in the district wishing that they had had this sooner in order to help guide what the area looks like.
Right. Okay. No, it's a great plan, and I appreciate all the time you and your crew have put to this. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Just, I'm one of the few that didn't serve on planning and zoning. So I don't have a background of understanding some of planning and zoning, but I thought, I'm not being negative about it, but I'm just asking.
Yep.
I thought I thought zoning was set up so that you wouldn't have noisy or smelly businesses right next to homes, residential areas, and that type of thing. I suppose with technology, you're not getting the types of restaurants that, that they have to vent out better than they used to have to vent out and all that stuff, so maybe it's not a big problem. But there are businesses that, bother other businesses. We hear about it in town, some small areas where residences are right near some of the little industrial areas, little zoned areas. Is this gonna exacerbate that?
I wouldn't say it's gonna exacerbate. I mean, I think it's a case by case basis,
Okay.
It's about placement of commercial and the residential, and that's what's gonna come out of this is gonna be a master plan for the entire district. That's gonna show the mixture of uses, how buildings can relate in the built environment to one another. So we wouldn't be looking to put, a factory next to a house, but there very well could be a plan that has street level retail with 2 levels of housing above. And that would be, if you're gonna rent a place like that, you're gonna have to understand that there could potentially be noise or whatever from tenants below.
Well, and I think there's a lot of positives to that, just like just south of us, those 2 houses that a few years ago were renovated and redone. You've got the retail like in the old days on the bottom, and you got residences on top. Well, they were all residences then. But I think that's good, but then I worry because there are some of the ones that had been problems in the past are here.
Yeah.
And they don't seem to have been a problem. That was 30, 40 years ago. That seems to have cleaned up and not become a problem. I just hope that this doesn't create a problem. And I guess I'm not saying no. I think this is great that we're trying to enhance the value of the properties and trying to enhance how this looks and the functionality of it in the little village where, you do live upstairs and you can run downstairs to the candy store and get, a bottle of milk or whatever you might have forgotten.
And I think that anytime with density, you run into those types of issues, right? And so from a planning standpoint, that's what we're looking at, how all these uses can live together in order to create this more compact walkability for town center type feel.
And what's to stop someone from a business that would be considered noisy from a property owner saying, well, I want to redo my building and I want to rent to, I can't think of one this way, but we all.
A nightclub or something.
Yeah, okay.
Right,
well,
outdoor
a nightclub.
patio.
Yeah,
Right, yeah.
and then you're gonna have upstairs, you're gonna put residences. Does planning and zoning have the right to say no to that? Or how would that work with their getting the permission? If there was a nightclub or a small nightclub.
Well, I mean,
a noisy bar.
I guess my answer to that would be that if you have a developer that's building a building, right, they're gonna be cognizant as to what the uses are on the first floor as it relates to, if they're trying to get $3,000 a month for apartments upstairs, I think they're going to look to see how that structure would relate with one another.
So
Just like with any
economically,
downtown
it's
building.
almost self-regulating.
Correct.
Because you wouldn't want to conflict. So, okay. All right, just some thoughts.
But we're gonna have to also look at, some of how these properties are, you have areas here with West Main Street, which these have always been commercial uses here. But you do have residential uses here. So when we're looking at how some of the properties that have frontage on West Main Street relate to some of the R20 uses directly behind them, there's going to have to be stipulations as to what those setbacks are, vegetative buffers, fencing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't want you to think that this is just we're taking all of our planning and zoning and throwing it out the window. It's going to be a very defined plan. So I've hired the professionals and the town planner and I are working together on this to really look at every parcel and how everything interrelates in order to try to come up with the best outcome. I mean, because right now you have mixtures of industrial, lumber yards, residential, commercial,
Places, right.
brownfields, so right now you already
Right.
have all of that. So, and what we're seeing is we're seeing a lot of development interest. I'll just be blunt to that. There's been some changes in the area already, and there's already people who are interested in scooping some of these properties up. So we really need to come up with the best way to plan this so we have kind of the framework to work off of. And like from all the individual meetings with property owners, it's been interesting for me to hear kind of what they all have different ideas for what they would want to do with their properties. Like for instance, there's an individual in the district who had wanted to do a bar and restaurant with their property, but it's not zoned for it, so they can't do it. There's not parking for it. So there's all of these things that I think the community would really like to see. It's just we have to kind of give them a framework to work towards that in a thoughtful, planned manner, you know, so.
Thank you.
Okay,
Jim and then Sylvia, or Sylvia then Jim?
doesn't matter.
You started.
Okay. Is this going to stimulate the property owners into trying to sell their properties and change the character of this? How is that gonna work? In other words, if I now know that you've changed the zoning, would that instigate me to sell my property quickly? Do you see that happening in a lot of properties changing hands because
see-
you're giving the opportunity?
I see by allowing for greater flexibility of uses on these properties, you're going to see property owners who will be approached by developers who are gonna wanna do more with the properties.
And is there a danger of a developer buying several properties that are adjacent to want to come in with a larger project that might push the boundaries? Or should we be concerned about that when we are laying out this?
I think that that's
plan.
what we need to plan for.
Right,
We need to plan for, there could be, and it's funny when we're meeting with SLR, they're gonna come up with this concept plan that's gonna show this built out as if you had $1 billion to come in here and do it. In other communities that they've done this for, it has spurred a lot of private investment, like right off the bat. And I'm not so that's not gonna happen here. I think that's kind of a good thing as long as it's done thoughtfully and it's done responsibly for the town. It's funny, a lot of people say traffic's a problem, and then you meet with the business owners and they love the traffic because it brings people to their businesses. So, and to the end of traffic and the Hawk system and the crossing, a traffic study still needs to be done. Once we get like what this plan is going to be, we're gonna have to look at utilities, we're gonna have to look at traffic, we're gonna have to look at all of those things that all go into a redevelopment plan for an area. But remember, right now, there's people who can come in and properties like this is 10 acres of zoned industrial. Somebody can come in here and build a 150,000 square foot building right there tomorrow. Obviously going through planning and zoning, but there's nothing in our planning that would stop that from happening. So we need to kind of look at, is that what we want to see there, or would we rather see a mixed use type development centered on the Farmington Canal Heritage Trail where you have families out walking and biking and we're building municipal parking and we're doing all these other things. To try to guide the process a little bit better, because right now, as I said, that's zoned industrial. A lot of these properties are zoned industrial in here, as well as residential and commercial right next door to one another.
Jim?
I was just gonna, on the smells comment, I was just gonna say that anyone, if you have an opportunity to go out to walk the trail on a Thursday or Friday evening, the smells coming from Pops or Rossini's are excellent.
That's
Yeah,
much better than they used to be from
Absolutely, yeah.
But, serious comment, so form-based code, I mean, the traditional Euclidean code it does dictate things, but form-based code doesn't dictate anything. Our planning and zoning is going to decide everything within the form-based code, right?
Right.
Okay.
And the form-based code is going to say, it's gonna have design standards, it's gonna have building use, it's going to regulate what is built, but it's going to allow for greater flexibility of uses within the building, if that makes sense.
And if someone were to decide to make a change in the property, it doesn't necessarily even have to be a mixed use change, right?
Correct, right.
It just allows for everything.
It just allows for everything. Okay. So I mean, in planning and zoning is gonna have a lot of review into this, so just wanted to get it out to you guys, just kind of see where we are.
Peter?
Andrew, with apologies to Field of Dreams, this is kind of like, if you create it, they will come, so to speak. So let's project, in your long range planning. The issue then is going to become parking. So what is the thoughts behind what you're going to do about additional parking in that area? It's something we've already struggled with ball and socket and with some of the other things that have come up. So what do you do about parking in this area if it does indeed become restaurants, bars, retail, mixed use, everything else.
So so for instance, let's say there was somebody here who wanted to do a redevelopment scenario here. One of the things that we're gonna be looking to do is create shared parking. So shared parking lots behind buildings, and that's gonna take a lot of work between the property owners in order to get everybody onto the same page. We have large areas that could be dedicated to parking. We've had property owners who we've met with that have talked about, would the town consider allowing 2-deck parking garages in order to allow for excuse me, stacked parking? So all of that is part of the overall planning for it. But one of the things we really want to look at is shared parking. So to get away from for every X amount of square footage, you have to X amount of parking spaces, because it's just going to kill any sort of ideas or plans for us, because the properties out here just aren't large enough. But not creating a nuisance, whereas we have cars parked all over the sides of the street. There's going to have to be, if we have a developer who wants to come in here and build X amount of square footage, there's gonna have to be somewhere in those regulations that say X amount of parking spaces has to be open or shared parking for the district. And talking with property owners in certain strips, they've already started talking to one another where they would be happy to be able to do that, as long as it didn't mess with their current counts for parking for their approval that they have through our current zone, which has to be on-site. So you have to have enough parking on-site to support the business. You can't look to if you want to build a shared parking lot behind an entire frontage along West Main Street.
Yeah, they can, yeah.
Right. So.
Anyone else before? Okay.
Just following up on Peter's comment and your answer. So right now, because I was thinking that somehow we're gonna have to do, or hopefully do something where, I'm not sure, in any of these projects, if you get to be popular enough that there's enough room to make shared parking workable for any, some of these properties, right? If they get to be enough traffic. Would a parking garage be allowed? Is that something that we currently don't allow at all?
So you currently have pretty strict regulations on parking garages. And so one of the ideas is like in industrial zones only. So one of the ideas is to allow for parking decks in this area. Obviously, what that looks like, I don't know, but we would not allow like the parking garage to be alongside of West Main Street. It would have to be, let's say that this property right here, for instance, got redeveloped, and you have a mix of residential and commercial all centered onto the front of the Farmington Canal Heritage Trail.
Right.
If we had a parking structure back here in order to have that, in order to not eat up all the green space that they might want to develop on the properties here. Same with with Ball and Socket, as you know, if the coal house gets built out, they have to build an additional 44 parking spaces. And so there's other options here. I mean, you have public parking, municipal parking, that's Ribbon's gonna cut 2 Fridays from now for this. And then you have municipal parking here. So there's a lot of little parking lots rather, that are developing in the area.
Right, and that's why I was just curious. See, was there some allowance for that if you needed some larger structure for parking? Because just ground parking may not be sufficient even with shared parking in some of these areas and some of these redevelopment sections, right? And that's something that P and Z would deal with
P&Z
per
would deal with,
application.
well, that would be part of the
Assuming
code.
Right.
And they would have to adopt that when they adopted the code for the area. And then one of the big things that we're looking at too is all of the setbacks along West Main Street. Right now, if you were to take down any of these buildings, they would have to be set 30 feet back from the road. Parking would have to be in the front. There's certain landscape requirements the town requires here, as if it was the Stop and Shop Plaza on Route 10. It's that what we really want to see here, because if we want to see that here, you're never going to see any sort of walkability in the area. You're just not, because we're working towards 30, 15, 15, 30, and you can't, you're looking at dropping buildings in the middle of the sites, not trying to push things to the front, leaving the parking in the back to try to create walkability and having, a streetscape along West Main Street. So it's kind of there now, so it's already kind of built, but if anybody want to redevelop any of those buildings right now, they'd have to go back. Or they'd have to do a zoning text amendment, it's not an easy thing to, so we don't have.
They're grandfathered in for where they are now, but they rebuilt them.
Thank you. So,
Anyone else before I throw you a few? Andrew,
yes.
years ago, probably town council may have initiated some of this conversation. It becomes a planning and zoning issue, so to speak. SDGs, we had special design districts, still do. Evolving over time is change within those districts. I think we're all familiar with infill zones along Route 10 particularly, and some other thoroughfares potentially. In a situation like this, how do we protect a concept?
Right.
Because this is one that is ripe for variability and danger at some level, where intuitively it sounds wonderful. It truly does. But, you know, everyone's idea of a nightmare is different than a good dream, you know? And so I guess my concern is it's really not a grave concern. I want to know how this becomes more implanted as a concept that guides a planning and zoning application.
So,
Because they are bifurcated once you get the land use committee involved.
Right.
And they're delegated to what the state law says, what Affordable Housing Act says, what a factory is, what a smelly restaurant is, or a good smelling restaurant. How do we, is form-based just a different form of euphoria that doesn't happen, or
Well,
it's changeable?
So if I, to the point about the special development districts in town, the one thing that we don't have with the special development districts is there's no design standards. So there's no sort of design standard that says, this is what the buildings have to look like. This is the mixture of uses. This is the percentage of residential, this is the percentage of commercial, this is the landscape, this is what the science should look like. We don't have any design standards. That's pretty much the hallmark of this. So in this plan right here, there's going to be design standards. So when planning and zoning gets an application and it's a building that is 7 stories tall and covered in vinyl siding and this, that, and the other thing, they're gonna go back to design standards for this area and they're gonna say, you can only have street level retail, 2 stories with this. The building has to be made out of, let's just say, hardy plank with divided light windows, and it has to have a certain theme to it. You can't put a purple building in the middle of West Main Street. Like, we want it to look a certain way. The signs have to be uplit. They have to be not internally lit billboards on the roofs of the buildings. Like, those are the things that, if I could just speak out of school for a second, that we kind of missed in some of the planning decisions, that there's no design standards for the town. And I think that's, I wish we had that for town center and things in other areas of town. That's a whole other discussion. That's what we don't want to see here, and so we want to help to guide. So when a developer comes in, they know what the playbook is. It's not like we're going back and we're asking. We're saying, okay, when you come in with your application, this is what it needs to look like. You can, but in exchange for that kind of government saying you need to do this, we're also saying, hey, you can put the building closer to the road. You can develop more on the site, and so you can actually, like, it would benefit them from a long-term building point in order to get more uses into the properties for the valuation that might cost a little bit more in order to make the buildings look a certain way.
Well, I think that's a very positive thing. I just wonder, and maybe you can't wonder enough on stuff like this because everything can change, how truly enforceable it is if someone else comes along and says, well, we really need to have, you know, this, that, and the other thing in that district.
Yep.
You know, this is crying for apartments, you know, whatever, because that's the next investment model.
Yep.
Yeah, that a developer's interested in doing, as we're experiencing now, which isn't a bad thing. It's just the reality.
Right.
They can make money in, you know, bank accounts that way, and a steady return on investment. But I guess I want as strong a plan as possible that's also reasonable. I mean, it can't be unreasonable.
Right.
Because we want to foster development, but not you know,
We want to foster development.
you don't want to stifle it either, or
Yeah, I don't
stifle
wanna-
the quality of the landowner, the ability of the landowner to sell their property and do what they want with their property.
Exactly. And so that's why it's kind of a balancing act. That's why we have a pretty good team in place to help to guide it. I mean, this is a long-term goal, and again, it's going to end up going to, once the form-based code is actually drafted, there'll be a series of reviews that we're going to be able to look at it. Planning and zoning might kill the whole idea. I hope that they don't, but I think that it's a good way to look forward if we want to really create this walkable town center type feel on West Main Street, this is the only way to do it. Otherwise, we're kind of at the mercy of developers who are gonna come in here and kind of tell us what they wanna build in the area.
Well, I don't think it's like it's being invented before there's already been some outcomes that are appreciated in town. I mean, West Main Street now looks pretty darn nice.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been a lot of improvement by private landowners to their own properties with a few enhancements paid for with tax dollars like sidewalks and things like that. The rest of it is, it's all private investment. And I think we're getting what we want without giving much more of a plan. And I think the planning's a great idea. I really do. I completely endorse it. I think it's wonderful. I just want to know that it's constructive, strong, and stable.
Absolutely.
And, for me, I'll be real happy about that. Will this be, and should it be, I think it should be incorporated into plan and development, which is now, they're doing an RFP on it. I mean, this all has to dovetail with that.
Yeah, so it will dovetail with that. So this report or this idea, concept, whatever you want to call it, will be done before that gets finalized, before BOCD gets finalized, yeah.
Okay.
And I'm working with Mike on that too. So Mike sits on the town planner, Mike,
Yeah.
and he sits in every one of these
Yeah.
meetings with the individual property owners. He'd be way more well versed in some of the stuff than I am, but
I actually think planning and zoning will welcome something like this, to be honest with you.
I think they will, and so at the design charrette, the property owners that we've met with have been enthusiastic about it, and we're asking them to come also because we want to make sure that they're part of that night with that discussion with planning and zoning there. We have a series of tables and boards and whatnot. We want planning and zoning to understand that they are in on this concept and that it's not just us coming up with some wanky idea to try to make something happen over here. But like to your point, it's all kind of happening, right? It's all, I brought DECD down there. They had never been here. They've given a lot of money to the town for both the steep grant for the sidewalks going back to 2016 or 14. And then, we, the town, put a lot of money into the parking lot. There's been a lot that's happened there, but bringing somebody in from the outside who's never been there and actually walking them around and showing them what's going on is very impressive to outside eyes coming in and looking. And I've got a whole, before and after slides that I put up for them and everything. So, we're lucky because it's kind of just happening organically. So this is just
The timing's good. It's a case where development took place before we set up the car, in a way. It's good.
So
Anyone else? Thank you so much for the
You're welcome.
presentation.
Thank
We're
you.
all, I
Thanks,
think we're all in favor. There's no vote, but I think you're getting positive feedback here.
I appreciate it.
I was down at the new parking lot today, just as a segue into our next section, but it's really unbelievable, the parking lot. It's fantastic. Jim shows a few unique pictures where it wasn't gated or screened, accessing from the park. They got a little screen back on there. You can kind of go through nice and easy, but it's gonna be a beautiful area. Plenty of parking. Plenty of parking. It's fantastic. Okay, so we're gonna move on to any other public comments that any members in the room from the public might have or may have. You're welcome to address us. Anyone? Please. Come on. I'll give up my chair. Sit down.
Or I can sit there. No, it's not-
Whatever. Whatever's good.
Okay. And, may I pass these around? I'm a teacher, so I always have handouts. There you go.
As long as there's
As long
no
as there's no
homework.
grading.
No homework.
Yeah.
No homework. Okay. I want to thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is Pat Latola, and I first spoke to you 3 years ago about Cheshire lacking a poet laureate. It is said I have been known for my patience. I've lived in Cheshire for almost 50 years. I'm a professor of creative writing at Southern Connecticut State University, a longtime educator and author. Cheshire is the home of the president of the Connecticut Poetry Society, me. the home of the Ball and Socket Arts Center, our town is poised to be a cultural beacon and a leader in the state. I'm pleased to run poetry workshops at Ball and Socket beginning in October. Yet, Cheshire is one of the few towns that does not have a poet laureate. Connecticut has a state poet laureate, and most every town in Connecticut has poet laureate, representing their town in poet laureate events and readings that take place around the state. And I've listed some of the towns here for you, not all, because I wanted to keep it on one sheet. The arts are essential to the health and vivacity of every community. Poetry is an ancient art that maintains its vitality today. It's something people turn to for solace, enlightenment, and delight. Poetry helps veterans deal with PTSD. I have worked with veterans. I work with seniors. In our challenging world today, we all need poetry. A poet laureate serves as an ambassador representing their town in the greater arts community. Poets laureate can be and have been appointed by the mayor, the town council, the arts commission, or the library board. And here's a short list of what a poet laureate can offer. Poetry readings and open mics for the public that includes our youth and our seniors, providing our youth an expression, means of expression in these very troubling times. We can have a poetry showcase in a public area like the town hall, the library, poems on our trails, publication of an anthology of poetry by community members, poems about the community, documenting historical events, figures, etc. And we can collaborate with local artists, musicians, dance groups, etc. for a very unique multimedia events. It saddens me when I see headlines in other town newspapers that say, Poet Laureate sought for our town. As a town known for their stellar educational system and rich history, Cheshire, my town, your town, our town, lags behind. The post is voluntary and costs the town nothing. The real question is, can Cheshire afford not to have a poet laureate? Thank you very, very much.
Thank you for
Thank
that.
you.
I tell you what, Pat, you have made a number of appeals, or at least on your behalf, to be considered as a poet laureate. And I will do you this. First of all, thank you for all of that.
Thank you.
Second of all, what I will do is I'm going to refer this consideration to the planning committee, and they'll take it up at their next available meeting. And number three, hopefully we'll be able to make a concrete decision within a month or so about all of this. Okay?
I don't have to wait another 3 years.
No,
Thank you.
no, I think that makes sense. Thank you so much.
I think
That's
that's
good.
good. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, though, no signs of poetry on the trail.
He's right.
We made some rules on signs on the trail.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I'm just here, Fiona Pearson, 100 Strathmore Drive, to support Pat. She's appealed several
Yes,
years in a row.
She has indeed.
She has already amply demonstrated her commitment to our community,
Yeah.
organizing poetry events at Riverbound Farm, inviting the Connecticut Poet Laureate to Cheshire and several other poet laureates
Yeah.
from surrounding towns. Beautiful events. She's worked regularly with our seniors in the senior center with poetry. And as a representative of the sustainability team, we would earn points for appointing a
You'd earn
poet
points.
laureate. So more points towards the silver, should we ever commit ourselves to silver. So I'm just here to echo
Well,
Pat's appeal and to support her.
well, thank you for that, Fiona, very much.
Thank you.
As I said, we will, we'll exercise due haste and get this taken care of. Thank you for that. Anyone else?
I.
Forget about you.
Now, wait a minute.
We don't do town criers.
Greetings, my name's Ron Gagliardi. I
Hi,
live
Ron.
at 5 Dover Court in Cheshire. And I'm a former town councilman, former town historian,
Yes.
current town crier, and also a person who is the executive director of the Lock 12 Museum, which strangely enough has been locked for about 6 years.
Yes.
But I don't want to go there.
It's all COVID.
It's all COVID.
Whatever,
Yeah.
everything is.
Okay, so the reason I'm here is, oh, by the way, I was nominated for the state poet laureate position.
Really?
Yes, I found that hard to believe.
What
myself.
happened?
Someone more deserving than I.
Okay.
Just
Just
his name.
had to ask.
Yes.
You were quite a published poet for many, many years. Every week in the
Yes.
paper.
Every week in the paper.
I wrote a poem for the Cheshire Herald for 7 years.
Yeah.
Yep.
Every week.
One of the councilmen here actually hired me to do a poem for a young person he was dating, but I won't say.
Wow. Wasn't me.
Not me.
I'm not
If
going.
I'd only known.
All right, so I'm here to support that there should be a poet laureate. And I wrote a poem, appropriately enough.
Would you write it? Read it?
I will, yes, thank you.
Please.
Yes, here it is. It's called No Rhyme or Reason. Our council could appoint a town poet, but it's almost as if they don't know it. Though the state says it's really okay, council's hidden the question away. So why not name Pat Mottola today?
It's iambic pentameter.
I never went there. I don't know.
I think if I got my counting right.
Iambic pentameter, okay. It's kind of like a limerick,
There you go.
but I
That's
call it a
better.
limerick because there's only a glimmer of a limerick.
Right. Surely you're more informed than I am.
Yes, yes. Now, and before I leave this exalted group, I wanted to add two things. One thing is, there is the Raymond Beard Lock 12 Museum on the Linear Park.
Yes.
And I am the wonderful director of that, but I haven't had much to direct for about the last 6 years because it's been locked. And I think there's been a report about what could be done to help it out and to remove the insect damage that's going on and continuing to go on. And so I'm just hoping to encourage you to put something in that direction. And my last point of information, I don't know how often you travel the streets of Cheshire. I hope you do a lot. Have you noticed the condition of the fire hydrants in the town of Cheshire? There's a lot of ones that look like palominos and pintos and very, very brown structures that I don't think should be brown. And every so often I mention it here and there,
Yeah.
and I hear that some money is going to be appropriated to it. And I just want to let you know that when people drive through who are not Cheshire residents or who are thinking about becoming Cheshire residents, they look at the state of our fire hydrants and they say, what's going on here? And there's actually a little bit of danger because as a fire hydrant rusts, you can't get the top off when you need to get to water. And I know the fire department used to go around and check them every so often and make sure that they're working. But there's a lot of really rusty fire hydrants in Cheshire. So I just want to let you know that you might want to think about that the next time you see a brown fire hydrant.
I know, Ron, to that question that you raised about fire hydrants, there's been many volunteers or people that would have volunteered to do it. They've been discouraged because it's a roadside activity, particularly on busier streets, it's pretty dangerous. But the point well taken, to be honest with you. And maybe there has to be some organized volunteer effort to help the volunteers. After all, they're volunteers.
Yes, that can work.
And I think that would be well worth some consideration. We'll talk to Jack Kastner about that.
Okay, and I
To the town
only
manager.
forgot one thing.
Yes, sir.
I came to this exalted group many years ago, probably about 20, and I said, you know, what Cheshire needs is a town crier.
Yes, indeed.
And the town council at that time said, you're correct, we will make you the honorary town crier of Cheshire. And I've led a few parades and I've opened a couple of events. I may be the only town crier in the state of Connecticut. I know there's one in Massachusetts. I haven't spoken to this person, but I know that there is one. So my feeling is if you can have an honorary town crier, you need a town poet laureate.
Well, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
We will consider that with all due consideration.
All right.
For our esteemed planning department, and it will not die in planning.
All righty then.
Thank you. Okay, move now along to approval of minutes. The minutes of August 10, 2023, Town Council Special Meeting, minutes of the August 15, 2023, Town Council Special Meeting, and minutes of the August 29, 2023, Town Council Special Meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, we now move to consent. Mr. Bowery.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution 091923-1, the consent calendar for September 19th, 2023.
Motion, we have a second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. None removed from consent, so we move on to old business. We may have to give them a little time to get in the building regarding the schools. Oh, they are? Okay. Shall we start with them then and go on to Bartlett to conclusion, because they're here and.
I think that probably.
Yes, that would be terrific.
Have them up there at the front, so just check maybe.
Hello?
Which maybe.
Sure.
There's 3 spots.
What's that? And I'm more than happy to tighten up my seat. As many as we can.
Hey, good to see you. Good to see you. Thank you.
What did you didn't get one of them?
Oh, thank you.
It'll- I don't think they, I think it started.
Didn't
here.
slide. Didn't.
it started.
Sliding.
Gotta work in my delivery.
That's
How you doing, Jim? Good there.
How are you, sir?
Masters, 3 masters. Oh, thank you.
Was that with them? It's okay.
It's a special group.
And we, if you guys need more room, we can. Taking up space, more you. Sliding paper.
Mr. Gussenberg. Yes, sir. We have your august team here, and I want to say a special thank you because you accommodated my request because I changed the meeting. My extreme apologies. It was bad planning on my part, but that's the way it goes. I'm in good health nonetheless. And with all of that, once again, thank you. I think because there's the larger team here tonight, including the architects, maybe some introductions are due. Not that we'll remember everyone's names, but just to remind us, I know Arcadis is here, we've got the architects, but let's go ahead with that, and then we'll let you begin.
We'll go right around the circle and let people introduce themselves. You can put the voice to the thing.
Yep.
Sure. Good evening. My name is Jeff Wazinski. I'm a principal at Tecton Architects. Justin Hopkins. I'm an associate principal and project manager at Tecton.
I'm Rich Sitnick with Arcadis, vice president. We're the owner's reps.
Laurel Purcell with ONG Industries, I'm pre-construction manager.
Mark Jeffco with ONG Industries, I'm the project executive.
Well, thank you for being here. So I'll let you lead off, sir, with your terrific report.
I'm going to do a quick introduction, and then I'm going to turn it over to the architects who have a presentation for you. As you know, we've been working now for several months developing the schematic drawings for the schools, the 2 schools. We've come a long, long way. We've gotten lots of feedback from the committee and lots of feedback from a working group that we have operating that it consists of a number of educators that the group also meets with. Taken all that feedback, put it together, and put together a very detailed description of what our schools are going to look like. You'll see today some drawings, some overview. I point out to you, this is only a small piece of what the schematic drawings are. The drawings I looked today run anywhere from 59 to 67 pages long. The narrative that goes with it is 170 up to 180 pages long. So it's a very long, detailed, specific piece that allows us to now move into the next phase, which will be design development. We completed the initial schematic designs in July. We sent those out to our estimators. ONG and Tecton each individually went through and did an estimation. And from that, we then had to meet and we looked at the total costs versus the estimated costs, made adjustments to the plans, reduced the expected costs by anywhere from $8 to almost $10 million in the 2 different buildings, and approved both now to move on to design development. The interiors are pretty much set. We're now still working on what should a specific classroom look like, how should the library be laid out. We're at that level. The exteriors, as you've seen, have gone through several iterations. 3 iterations I can think of in the Norton, 2 at the north end, and I think today you're going to have an opportunity to see one more possible exterior for the north end. I do caution you that this north end drawings that you're going to see this evening have not been shared yet with the committee and therefore obviously have not been approved. We haven't approved exteriors for either building yet, but we're getting much closer. And other than that, I'm going to turn it over to the architects, let them run you through, and we'll be glad to answer whatever questions you have.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll let it off with you, Justin.
Thank you for the update, Rich. So a couple things that we want to, brief agenda. So we have probably about 40 slides, I'll warn you. We'll try and get through them concisely. So we can take questions as we go along, or if you'd like, if you prefer, we can get through the presentation and then circle back to the slides. So
Feel free to take your time.
Okay,
please.
okay.
You're not being rushed.
Okay, so we want to go over our summary, the project summary and the schedule, some of our visioning, which was part of a presentation that we had given here before, but we just want to recap that because that's always the touchstone that we kind of come back to, is that these were the station points that we started the project on. Get into North End schematic design, Norton schematic design. As Richard mentioned, we're starting to get into interior design, so wanted to share some of our working group discussions and presentations, then talk about upcoming events, because we do have some public events coming up. So we always share this slide, the project summary page. It's just a quick recap of the distinctions between the North End and the Norton Elementary Schools. So by and large, they have identical program from kindergarten to 6th grade. The distinction with the North End Elementary School is we have our pre-kindergarten program consisting of the early childhood program from Darcy. So that distinction accounts for the larger building size for North End, the larger enrollment, and subsequently the larger construction cost. As Richard mentioned, we have finished schematic design, and we have gone through cost estimate reconciliation, and for at least one of the projects have already met with the state to review what's called the schematic design review with the Office of Grants Administration. So this is important to an important slide to indicate we have a couple more thresholds before we actually get out to bidding. So this was the first check of the budget and the scope. We will now be going through design development, which is further detail of the spaces, what goes in them. As Richard mentioned, we're starting to have some room by room discussions about exactly how many cubbies do we have in here, where's the teaching station, where's the teaching wall, a lot of the granular stuff that goes into how the spaces work. We'll then go through another cost estimate reconciliation, another presentation at this body as well as the BOE. And once we get through that, we'll get into construction documentation, which really is ideally heads down, really putting together the kit of parts and the instructions for construction, as well as specifically on Norton, heavy involvement with ONG and Arcadis on site logistics and sequencing of an occupied site. We're already having those conversations, but that's where they really start to come to fruition. So this entire process is scheduled, the completion of construction documents is scheduled for summer of 2024 with the idea that we would start our bidding process around this time next year, correct? Yes. So visioning, this is just a recap of some slides that we shared before. We had some involved discussions with a great cross-section of Cheshire residents within the schools, arriving at the concept for the North End of farm and field and for Norton Woods and Trails. And this was done through a collaborative process of some working group concepts where we had precedent images out on the table, story collaging, etc. And we'd shared some of our North End inspiration, drawing from some of our community images. This has been in just about every one of our presentations. So it should, in addition to familiar photographs within town, familiar to the presentation. We do like to reiterate in every meeting our think tank mission statement for North End. And that is all the way to the left of the slide. We're doing this for every child and the future of the Cheshire community, so that they can feel a connection and sense of belonging to their school community, and ultimately be drawn in and love learning. Similar Norton inspirational images, again, picking up on some of these precedent images from the natural landscapes within the community, and really honing in on that woods and trails concept. So our Norton think tank mission statement, very similar, but it's worth repeating. We're doing this for everyone who's here and everyone who's coming next, so that they can grow as a learner in a space that is fun and safe for mind and body, and ultimately feel like they belong, are safe, supported, and welcome. Those are two really inspiring mission statements. So North End schematic design. Here we have a site plan showing Marion Road to the top of the page, and Jarvis Street to the left. If you recall, this greenfield slopes from Marion Road down to a wetlands that is down at the bottom of the site, bottom of the screen. Little larger view of the site plan. You'll see the area in gray is obviously the footprint of the school. And I'd just like to go through some highlights from a diagrammatic perspective. So the areas in one are our separate parent and bus loops. Our parent loop is to the left, and our bus loop is to the right of those parking areas. We also have a separate pre-kindergarten entrance off of Jarvis. So different start times, different needs throughout the day for parents and teachers to have a separate entrance and kind of a dedicated parking area. So aligning visibility from our administrative spaces to the entrances, both from the parent pickup and drop off, bus pickup and drop off, and pre-K parking area. Off of our bus loop, we do have our loading and receiving, so there's an idea that we can have some control, separate some of the control for that area from the parent pickup and drop off loop. Getting into some of the exterior curriculum and play space, for both schools, we do have an open courtyard that is open to outside of the building, but also starts to frame a protected curriculum space, as well as bring in some natural light deeper into the building. In our conversations with the working groups and the facilities folks, enclosed courtyards are problematic for maintenance, for being able to get maintenance equipment in, as well as they just over time do not perform as well as an outside exterior space, or a space that's open to the rest of the exterior. So both buildings, both projects share this concept of an open courtyard. We have our areas for protected play, separate from any of our public parking spaces or public or vehicular driving areas. We're also identifying our areas for the pre-kindergarten protected play. So each of these playscapes will be age appropriate. Obviously, our littles, our youngest learners have different needs in terms of play structures than, say, our upper elementary folks. And this may be a difference from the last time that we were here. We talked a lot about providing exterior fields, rec space. We have built in those areas in both projects. The areas that are highlighted 8 will have hot top play that's in the bottom 8, and then 2 fields. Now these can be, we're sizing them according to soccer fields, but I think we still have discussions in front of us about, is there a ball field? That we've heard this from some of the comments at the Fall Festival. But right now we're showing them sized so that we can accommodate the space. We're looking to build in outdoor classrooms. These are more or less clearings or areas that a class can go sit around a teacher and have some outdoor curriculum. Also building in a nature trail around the perimeter of the site. Obviously not within the wetlands, but trying to build that in. Our stormwater area, bioretention, will be down at the bottom of the slope. So we're looking to position that in a way that can help to define some of the other spaces. So we've had a lot of discussions about this will not be an area that is going to be standing water or a mosquito factory right next to our playscapes. So the idea is that it handles, for instance, the rain that we had yesterday. It will be able to handle that stormwater volume and drain into the soil. And locating our geothermal well field at the location of our recreation area, our soccer field to the north is plan right. In terms of our floor plan diagrams, the areas that are high, so this will be a commonality between the two designs, is we're attempting to separate some of the public spaces, the public curriculum spaces such as gymnasium, cafeteria, media center, some of our specials, music, art, along a main street or a public street, what we call quote unquote public within the building, and being able to separate our learning communities from them. So that concept allows us to compartmentalize our learning communities, but also provide areas that we can have open after hours, nights, weekends. I'd like to say old man basketball if there's a league that's going on. So the concept that the building can kind of work for the community during the times that it is not a school. So main level floor plan, we can circle back to this, but later, but I have some diagrams that I just want to talk about some of the key features. But you'll see the main entrances that we had identified on the site plan, administrative spaces and highlighted in green that are very close to the main entry. So high visibility to students and parents and visitors that are approaching. Our pre-kindergarten area to the left of the screen, as well as our intensive education, forgive me, as well as our intensive education and kindergarten spaces within that learning community. Everybody gets a chuckle up. By the way.
You like the same language.
So we had a meeting in here and I was having trouble reaching the top of the screen. So, yeah.
It's been in the red dot.
So you'll see our gym, CAF, our visual arts, our music areas, and media center all located along this Main Street corridor. Our learning communities for this level, which is the main level, is grade 1 and grade 2. This is a module for the learning communities that you'll see reflected on the second floor, which has our 5 grade level classrooms for first grade and second grade, a resource room, a toilet core, a teacher planning area, and some infrastructure, so custodial closet and IT closet. In terms of some plan diagrams, clarity of circulation, you'll see we've highlighted the Main Street corridors as well as the learning community corridors, identifying some breakout spaces that are at our intersections within the learning communities. So in those areas, we've widened the corridors to provide some additional modalities of teaching. You know, it can be peer-to-peer, small group. In other words, providing an opportunity for all the stuff that happens in our schools anyway out in the corridor, providing a location for it. So I had already mentioned the ability of the open courtyard to allow additional natural light, but trying to locate views to nature at those circulation intersections, as well as areas throughout the building where we have access to those views to nature. The areas in yellow are where we have the opportunity to allow natural light deeper into the building. So you notice that every curriculum space has an exterior window and a location to get that natural light. We had mentioned compartmentalization. So the areas that are in purple are areas that we can build in through access control measures, allow those particular learning communities to be separated safely from the rest of the building. So that's kind of a uniform theme that we always look for, compartmentalization in our buildings. So the upper level, you'll notice the grade level learning communities mirrored. So grades 3 and 4 on one side, grade 5 and 6. At this level, we are providing a connection between the two learning communities. We do have the ability to compartmentalize them, but this is for simplicity of means of egress from the upper level out to grade. At this level, we have our additional art and a second floor of the media center. Because this is more of an upper elementary floor level, we assume, and through our conversations with our working group folks, there's the opportunity to have an upper elementary art room and more age-appropriate reading material in the media center on the upper level. And then we have some of our resource, math and reading intervention, OTPT, social worker, and psychology there. But again, all along this main street separated from the learning communities, same opportunity for breakout, same opportunity to the views to nature and outdoor access, same opportunities for natural light into the building, as well as compartmentalization. So, as Rich had mentioned, we've gone through, I believe the last time we were in front of this body, we had shown these conceptual images, exterior images for the north end. We have gone through a couple of understanding that a lot of our exterior design and our floor plan organization is a bit of rinse, wash, and repeat. We present something, we get feedback, we reflect that back. Maybe we hit the mark, maybe we missed the mark. It's a long-winded way of saying the exterior design is an evolution, and it's a partnership, right? So from some of our initial feedback, we had presented these host of exterior images. These were just views from the parent loop and the main entry. We heard some comments like too much glass. Can you look at a better balance between masonry and gosh, if you're really going for this farm and fields concept, maybe start to look at some exterior materials that harken back to that a little bit. So as Richard mentioned, we have not presented the following images to the NGSBC, but we felt compelled to present them in front of this meeting tonight.
Can I say hooray?
Whoa.
What's that?
Yeah, much better.
Like that.
So they don't like to take that. Start over?
Yeah. That's very nice.
So a couple things. We're still pulling in some of our stone veneer. We're looking at using a combination of metal panel or cementitious panel to pantomime some of our our siding color. These are more durable materials than simple wood, but we are planning on having some accent areas where we have a natural wood feel and look. So from this area, we have the media center all the way to the right, main entry and gymnasium. We have introduced a vertical element that we think will work well within our entrance space, really to kind of connect the main floor and the upper level, and then our cafeteria all the way over the left. So we think we have a pretty good kit of parts here, and this is just a view to the main entry. So,
Justin, if I could just ask a question, after seeing all the footprints, the
Yep.
basic floors, this essentially fits with the floor plans we've
Yes.
basically looked at.
Yes.
This is the window dressing, if you will.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's one of the things that we've been kind of kicking around within the office. Our floor plan concepts and organization are you'll see a similar theme when we start getting into North.
Unknown caller.
In terms of in terms of
crickets.
And it's spam, so.
Spam, like
Yeah, turn it off, sorry about that.
That's okay. So we tackled the building organization and the separation of curriculum spaces similarly in both North End and Norton. But we really feel like we're starting to build on that narrative that we started with, the farms and the fields and the woods and trails.
And the committee and the working groups all seem to be very comfortable with the interior designs.
Yeah, and as we move through the room by room analysis, we learn more about how they're gonna utilize the rooms, what kind of shape they wanna be, so that, it's kind of a massaging of the design and the floor plan and the exterior all together, so.
Okay.
This has a very farm look.
That's
Yeah,
good.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That looks like a lake house.
It's
Yeah.
a silo, it's
Well,
where they put the corn and the.
Yeah.
and the
Make
big
it round.
Make it round.
Big-
That's okay, that's minor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Round costs more.
The beacon flashing.
That's the way it is.
Okay. So, as much as I'd like to hang on that slide, go to.
That's it, you can go.
So Norton, site plan for Norton, obviously we have the existing Norton Elementary School that we will be building our new building to the back of. The area that's in white is the location of the existing school. So from the start, we understand that we're gonna be building all of this while this school is operational, starting with the next academic year, 2024-2025. North Brooksvale Road to the bottom of the screen or south, Farmington Drive to the west. You don't see it here, but this access road goes to Sharon Drive there. So just a blow up of that area, and I similarly have this diagrammatically. So similar themes of separating parent and bus drop off. Parent pickup and drop off is to the east. Bus pickup and drop off is to the west. Because we do not have the pre-kindergarten program here, we will have one main entry into the building, although the area that we have for cafeteria is also located here to help facilitate staging for dismissal out to the buses. Our loading area, once again, is off of the bus pickup and drop off loop. And we have our emergency access drive that goes all the way out to Sharon Drive. In our meetings with some of our first responders in town, we understand that this is not a nice to have, it's a must have in order to help respond to the building. Our open courtyard in between our learning communities, protected play areas. You'll notice I'll caveat this by saying I think we still have a little bit of work to do with developing the area directly to the north. We think that some of this area will ultimately locate here. The reason being is that our cafeteria is located right here. We've had a lot of discussions about what do the kids do before lunch and after lunch, and how far is their walk to recess and play. So we've responded to that in part here, and that's more to come on that. Our blacktop play and fields play. What you're not seeing here is we're still showing a field that's closest to North Brooksville. Outdoor classroom in more or less in the wooded area, the existing wooded area, as well as a nature trail that we are trying to build in. We do have an existing memorial garden that is somewhere right around here that we will need to sensitively relocate. I believe there's also a couple of dedication trees or benches that are over there that we want to make sure that we encumber in the new site plan. Our stormwater and bioretention, all of the existing stormwater flows into a wetland that's in the back of the site. The vegetation within that existing area is of an invasive species. As part of this project, we're going to clean that out, as well as provide stormwater to that area, as well as some rain gardens that are located within the parking area. So we do have a wetland edge that we need to be cognizant of, that is a buffer from our wetlands area. And again, locating a geothermal well field within one of our recreation spots. So similar concept, two-story nomenclature, main level, upper level, providing our public areas along a Main Street corridor with our learning communities that are able to be separated out. For our main level, once again, our administrative spaces near our main entry, media gym, cafeteria, kitchen, as well as our loading and receiving area. Some of our specials of music and art and media center kind of orbiting the Main Street. Our grade level learning communities, we have kindergarten as well as some of our special classrooms in this area. Our grade 1 and 2 learning community on the upper wing. Similar concept of making sure that we're providing our learning community core of a resource room, teacher planning, toilet core, custodial closet, and technology room. We're showing an area for future expansion that will make sure that in our site plan development, we do not have any utility infrastructure in, so that if necessary, we have an area that we can build 4 additional classrooms. So similar organization, clarity of main entry. One of the things that, if you've been following our meetings at all, we've been discussing, whether the media center should share a wall with the gymnasium. One of the things that we liked about this is the clarity of the circulation. There's something that's really nice about walking into the building and being able to see all the way to the nature in the back through the building. So though it's a big building, you really get the sense that you know what the building's doing when you walk in. So that clarity of circulation is vitally important in elementary schools. So once again, providing breakout areas at the ends of our corridors, or at least at the intersections of some of our learning communities, views to nature and outdoor access. As you recall from our site plan, here's the cafeteria. We're providing some of our play spaces directly to the north of it. So if you can recall the concern, making sure that when we have, students that are finishing lunch to be able to go directly out to recess, that's very important. Our daylight, the one thing to note is our gymnasium does not have an exterior wall here, but we will be providing natural light from skylights. Are the two areas that we're having borrowed light, this area, the media center, and this area of the art room. This is a nice northern light, which is very nice for art. And making sure that we're providing glazing along this exterior wall and the interior wall into the art room. The compartmentalization of our learning communities, upper level, so similar organization of grade levels in both schemes, pre-kindergarten to grade 2 on the main level, grades 3, 4, 5, and 6 on the upper level, along with an upper level of the media center and upper elementary art. Again, Main Street, we really feel like this, as we get into the development, in addition to being able to see from the front of the building to the back of the building upon entry, we think it's a great opportunity to start having some vertical engagement between the upper level and the main level. And we'll be showing, at our next meeting, we'll be showing some renderings of some of the interior spaces there. So, views to nature, natural daylight, and compartmentalization. So similarly, where we've been on Norton, and those of you that came to the Fall Festival saw these images on some boards. We've gone back and forth on trying to address a lot of discussion about the main entry canopy, as well as our learning community wing, trying to break up the scale, trying to kind of simplify some of the entry sequence or the canopies. This is our latest rendering, and we had reviewed this with the NGSBC on Thursday. So entry canopy focused a little bit more restrained at the entrance. Our administrative wing directly next to the main entry. You do enter into a 2-story space opposite our media center. Our learning community wing, we have attempted to break up the overall massing and start to play with some of the materials between masonry, metal panel, and some natural wood at areas where we have some punch outs at the kindergarten area, as well as some overhangs at the grade levels. So this is a view from the approach at the bus drop off. This is from the bus drop off parking area. Some views on axes as you're driving up to the parent pickup loop. A view of the grade level wing. And from our to the main entry from our pedestrian boulevard. So we'll have a sidewalk that goes all the way out to North Brooksville. Okay. Any questions on Norton before I just move into a quick? Yeah, go ahead.
Quick question.
Oh, sure.
The building, the windows on the lower level there, they kind of look like sliders that are just a little bit lifted off the ground. Are those open? Do those, are there fixed windows? Are they openable? Are they what is it? It's just, I kind of look at them, they look like sliders.
Yeah.
To me. So
those areas, first of all, we do have a standing state law that requires us to have operable windows in every classroom for rescue assistance or egress. I don't believe these ones are operable. The idea of having this modest projection out of the exterior wall, if you recall in the plan, this is an area where we have kindergarten. And the idea is that we can perhaps provide a little area that with a relatively low sill. This is a location that a child or two kids can curl up with a book within that kind of space. So.
But those windows wouldn't open or be operable.
No, that was your question. I'm sorry. I went on a
No,
I went on a ride.
I just wanted to make sure, I just want, I just wanted to make sure, because when I look at those, I think, oh, it looks like that's something they could open up and walk out of.
Yeah.
Or at least get air
You guys stop me
circulation.
sometimes. You'll ask a question, I'll answer 5 other ones.
Justin,
Yeah.
just one question, and maybe I'm going too far ahead, but with the fact that there's an existing building, and obviously some of this work is gonna be done when that existing building is down, and I'm talking about entry and the parking and that large, what appears to be a field relatively close to North Brooksvale. How does that all happen? Because I'm looking at this and thinking there's a lot of parking and pavement right in front of the entrance to the building, which is great on a rainy day without a question, getting people in and out when they're close to the building. But I'm seeing that larger field area and seeing it also as, is that a public use field that's not really shareable with the school community because it's so distant? Can there be a rearrangement of pavement with that, particularly now since we've purchased some more property? It
This
could,
area right here, right? This is
Yep.
property.
and I only ask it, not because you can conceptualize it here, but I've just been drawing a few rectangles and wondering if it's not considerable now.
Mhm.
Because that just seems like an island to me.
The
The green space
green
closest,
yeah.
where from a drive-by, it's maybe more attractive, I'm not sure, but I can't even conceptualize the distance either. That's a pretty good walk though, I think,
Yeah.
from that field to the school building.
It is, no doubt about it. That's exactly why we are providing this guy here.
Right, but then in an instead of or in lieu of, is there maybe just a way to put more green near 2 sides of the school or 3 sides of the school and bring the pavement away, at least a portion of it, away from the close proximity of the building? Maybe that affects the circulation, maybe it's not doable. It's just something I see as maybe, why the heck did we do that?
Yeah.
And I've heard questions about that from members of the community as well, not just in isolation with my own head.
So I'll address the sequencing portion of this first. So the idea is that you guys can jump in and correct me if I get my timing
Construction.
wrong. Yeah, so we're everything according to schedule has us going out to bid at this time next year for a start of construction in Q4 of 2024. You will then have a year and a half of construction. So you'll go through 2025 and the first half of 2026. So students will be in this building in their current grade configuration until middle of June of 2026. The goal is to have this building complete at that point. So on the last day of school, the next day this building starts coming down. Probably a little bit longer than that, but yes.
Run fast.
So since that overlays parking spaces that are
Yes.
clearly illustrated and
Yes.
certain things, there's already gonna be certain things the public is dealing with,
Yes.
including staff and everyone else.
Yep. So the goal is, and this is where Laurel and Mark might be able to chime in. This, from what we understand, this work cannot be demolished and built in the 10 weeks that we have available for summer. So there's gonna be some overlap of moving into the new building while this is being developed. There are some operational things that make it, we don't wanna have people park a long ways away from our building, but we do. So I think we can take a look
Yeah,
at
I
what
mean, there
this
were
is.
some preliminary discussions about, can we work some of the green space up closer to the building over here? The challenge is, we have bus drop off, adjacent to the building here, so we don't want to get that too far away, but we can certainly see, and we did start reviewing with the site civil in LA, if we can get more green space, in front of the cab to kind of enliven that space a bit more. The challenge is going to be, quite honestly, is consolidating these drives into one. Because I think if you just simply push this further down, I think you're going to have a little bit of a challenge from a day-to-day operation. So I think the opportunities, I guess, in short, are over in this area, which we've
Maybe
started.
even if there's a little less more useless green space.
Right,
I mean,
right.
maybe that's all
Yeah.
that is necessary.
Yeah.
And we have an island for a field. I don't know.
Yep.
The driveway that's going to Sharon Drive is only for construction use and for emergency vehicles? Because I know originally they were talking maybe it could be used as a bus. But I know Dr. Sullivan said it during the meeting when you went with them, he said that we're really only talking about 6 buses.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
It's not like there's 20 buses coming in and out all day long too. So it's not but I know some of the neighbors over there might not like that, I guess, but.
But you made it one lane too. You
Mm.
changed
Yes.
the dimensional
Yeah.
width of it now.
Yes.
Mhm.
So it's, the idea is that the idea is that we put either a gate or bollards out here and a gate or bollards here, so that it can be a pedestrian walk, for 99% of the time. In the event that there may be an accident here on Brooksville and traffic is backing up, it's a relief valve or there's traffic, but there's an emergency and we need to get a first responder here, we have the ability to use this access drive in. And if there's a bottleneck or something here, that option is available to the district to have the buses go out that way. It hasn't been part of the operational sequence that we've discussed yet, but we know for certain that we at minimum need to provide it for emergency access, emergency response.
So you're saying that is not currently planned as a everyday
Correct.
bus transmission?
Correct.
I would caveat though, when we do have that tight site, if you will, once the new building is done and we still have a large portion of the site under construction with the demo and abatement, there may be a need for that overlapping time to possibly send the buses out.
Right.
Just because it is so tight, so we wanna keep an open mind on that.
Right, I think Don and I both said that was originally discussed as a day-to-day operational busway, and that is no longer the plan.
Basically, you turn it into a one-way whenever it has to be one way.
Right, right, so they're either coming or they're going.
Right, exactly.
Can I just Becky, right on what you're saying? I mean, I'm almost looking at this to say, put the field where the parking is, put the parking where the field is. And what's the downside of that? The field that way is closer to the school. They can come out at lunchtime and go to the field. The walking, well, essentially the parking lot.
That's what I had said, but I think.
That's what.
Long
Long
walk from the park.
That is,
Okay.
look how long Norton
What's
is.
the length of the
See how
school,
long
right.
that school? And right now, that field is where the parking is.
Right.
In a sense.
Yeah.
So
it is.
that's the other perspective you don't necessarily get from looking at the plan here. But I think you can come up with a compromise.
Yeah.
Deal with it.
Yeah.
That little leg there, so we can.
Because my related question to that, Tim, it would be that, do we need is the field up front just because we got green space and we're gonna, let's use it for a field? Or does it need the 2 fields, as part of the development of this? Do you need the 2 fields? Or is that just like, hey, we've got an open space, let's turn it into a field?
I'd like to tell you that it was more calculated behind it, but it's more of the latter than the former.
Well, okay.
Yeah, the state's listening, we need all of what we show on this.
Right.
Perfect.
We show it in order to try and.
Or just make a bigger
Yeah,
one
the
on the
town
right.
needs fields.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something that we heard loud and clear when we were
That's
here.
true. They can be pickleball fields.
I'd like to see some more baseball fields though.
Yeah.
I have it, we don't have enough baseball fields, and then I don't see any in there.
Either
Yeah,
school.
to that point,
Well,
the area to the right of the site there, where there's a lot of, sort of trees around that little field. What Can you tell us a bit about why there's so much sort of extra space there? Couldn't there be some more ball fields there or something?
Where are you looking?
On the right-hand side.
That's existing
classroom.
woods, that's the buffer to the residential on the right-hand side and the residential on Dryden. And, well, that really isn't, because that's on the inside.
On the inside, there's-
Inside of the road, you know, you're a ways away from the residential on Sharon, so you could use the top portion maybe, but.
Yeah, that's what, when I mentioned in the large plan, we think that there may be the opportunity to use a little bit more of
Field
this
up there.
program here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cause
Where's the
there
left?
is a little canal or whatever that runs, but it's at the back of those properties, so it's where that line is, the top line. It's just above that, you can almost see it within the, yeah, that's the little canal that runs along the back there.
What's that diagonal shaped drawing? It looks like a big piece of rock that.
That's wetlands.
That's wetlands, okay. But you might be able to fit the fields farther back before you get
Sure.
to that line.
Just a member of the public that had
And
a
keep in
question.
mind too, anything up in that
Yeah.
north area is difficult to get to for community use.
Yeah.
That's true.
It's
Yeah.
from
Yeah,
the-
that's.
That's a hike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What happens if?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, what is the actual physical distance from the school to that field? Is it a quarter of a mile, an eighth of a mile? How long would it take kids to actually walk there?
From where to where?
From the building to that field that's,
In the front?
Towards North Brooksville.
Oh,
yeah,
it's probably the length of 2 football fields, tops.
It's,
Yeah,
it's
it's
the
the length of
length,
Norton.
it's the length of Norton.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, that's what I was gonna say.
Going
Yeah.
from the very front of Norton to the very back, so they get addition.
Good couple minutes. Might take you a good couple of minutes to walk back.
So with the addition, do you have the one that's that doesn't show double, or, well, we can use the one on the right. So if you took the exit for the bus drop off, yep, and moved that to the left now that property is available, and squeezed that parking to the right and extended it down further, and take that field and move it up to the left-hand corner.
Right there.
Down here. And then-
Yeah, and then move that to the, exactly. Is that a possibility? So the parking, you end up with the same amount of parking, it's just some of it is further away from the entrance to the school.
But you need the straight, but you need the straightaway coming in for the pickup and, coming, do you need that straightaway along the left side to get to the drop off and, not the.
Well,
the-
it
the-
comes
the hauling part
in,
in the
it
back.
comes in by the new property.
Right.
It comes in that jag out there and goes up and then bends to the right and goes up along
Could you do
the
it with a
edge,
pointer?
the top right edge of the
Use the
existing
pointer.
school now.
Peter, could you do it with a pointer?
Yeah.
Well, you don't have to, but it's gonna help me.
Wait, but then you're gonna have an issue with.
So if you take this field and move it up to here somewhere, okay?
Yeah.
Move it to that area. Now you take this and move it so it jags out this way and comes out to here rather than coming out to here. Because this isn't existing now.
Right.
So now you have the entrance coming in this way
Right.
and then doing
Talking
a
about
jag over here and coming up, and then squeezing this and extending it down to around this area. And this just becomes dead green space or passive green space, and the field is now located up here.
But is there an issue with the parking lot being right next to a field where balls and everything else are gonna be hitting cars?
Well, you've got a field here with
But there's more of a buffer. I don't know if you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's.
I don't know.
Soccer balls.
Yeah.
I think they,
Crossballs
you
do
probably get the general gist of what we're thinking,
Yeah.
and probably your group has been thinking
Yeah,
as well.
I think, well, we've had conversations.
Yeah,
about it.
I know that it's been talked about, so if that's an area where you can devote a little bit more attention to detail.
I was just wondering if that blocked, my comment was just whether it blocked that, just that the road goes behind the school there to get to the, yeah, that area. And what's in that, where those those diamonds are, that's like the drop off for like supplies and stuff, right? That,
Right here.
yeah, right there.
That's loading, receiving.
Loading and
Yeah,
receiving.
gotta get from there.
Yeah. Gotcha, so obviously, yeah, so obviously as long as you can somehow still get the truck or whatever in and around there.
Yep.
It looked like it was, right now it's a nice straight shot in and out.
Yeah.
If you put a field in, they gotta somehow get around it, but that's why they draw the pictures.
And obviously, the narrowness of that particular site is difficult to work.
Yeah.
Yes.
Spent a lot of time
Yep.
talking about that.
We had a question, you already asked the question about the distance, and we told you it was 2 football fields, that's right.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Peanut gallery says.
Yeah.
We're, can we jump in then and ask?
Yeah, I would say whatever comes forward.
Can you go back to, the north end, layout?
Site layout or floor plan layout?
The floor plan layout, first floor plan layout. In between music ensemble and Smart Start, what is that gray area that's in between?
So we have the
Right
need
there.
to, as part of this program, is some interior, exterior storage, the ability to have a storage area that is seasonal in nature, that helps facilitate some of the outdoor,
Adaptive equipment.
Yes.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
exactly.
Yeah, Darcy has a series of storage sheds in the back of their play area,
Yes.
and that's what we're trying to do is consolidate that with the interior storage, so to optimize it. So,
The only concern was the music ensemble being close to Smart Start, and I wondered what kind of a noise buffer that provides, or how good is the soundproofing on the left side of the music ensemble, so that you're not distracting the kids that are, in Smart Start
Yeah,
in that area.
it's a great question. So the high performance building standard requires certain STC ratings between different types of classes, music, general class, media center. So we have to comply with a certain type of wall construction that mitigates noise transfer between the spaces.
Okay.
And then oftentimes where you see music or spaces that typically have, louder acoustics, we try to back up storage rooms so that you have a buffer on top of a buffer. So we think that this is kind of an ideal scenario. Backing up storage to those kinds of spaces is often what we try to do.
And I would say, as somebody who's worked on a project that the middle school band room was located directly below the principal's office, we will be
That's
keenly
cool.
aware of.
But our band sounds so good.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
I have a couple of questions about exits and entrances and the
Sure.
safety issue, and maybe I'm reading wrong. I see your potential for adding additional classrooms, both on the lower and upper levels if you needed to do that. And those, where, are those exterior walls from the end of the resource room to the end of grade 1 there, is that an exterior door?
It's an exterior wall
A wall,
The
but there's no
exterior-
way to get out of the building there?
here.
That goes, that's an outside door?
Yes.
Okay, now, all right, so getting into the courtyard, now somebody is an intruder and gets into the courtyard, how do you protect that area from getting into the classroom space? I'm just trying to read all the little things that I'm far away from that screen.
So this is
exterior wall all the way around. So
Right.
it will have our typical hardening of the exterior building envelope.
Okay,
And our exterior doors will also have our typical secondary access controls.
Okay.
Not unlike these doors here,
okay,
where there will be credentialed access into the building.
right.
Yeah, we also talked about, and haven't shown it yet, some kind of access control into the open courtyard
But
as
yeah,
well.
that's what, I
Yeah.
mean, I hate to even have to think about that, but these days, those are things you do
Yep.
think about. And
E-
there's a
even
lot
though
of
they-
exterior ways to get in. I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4,
Sylvia?
5, 6, yeah.
Some of these considerations are very important, but maybe some of the safety aspects are.
Yeah.
For
I'll talk
Oh,
in
okay.
in
Got it.
in
Okay.
generalities,
All right, got it.
Yes.
which is what
Yeah,
I deliberately
yeah, right,
just
okay,
did.
just
Yeah.
a
okay, got it.
cautionary note.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense, but just curious.
I have a question about the gyms in both areas. I assume those are full-size basketball courts. I suppose the schools that we have now are, semi.
Their size for middle school regulation.
And the platform is like a stage, is that?
Yes.
So they can do theater. And what's the capacity of these gyms? Like if they had a performance or something?
So that's something that we will need to get back to you on. But I can tell you that, so we will be doing occupant loading as well as seating for both a gym, say a basketball game, but also the intent is to have an all-school assembly in the gym. So the platform itself, and I forget if we went over this feature, but forgive me for not in the description. The idea with the platform is that we will have a operable partition on either side, so that we can have we can open the side to the gym, close the side to the cafeteria, have a presentation in the gym. We can also do vice versa, close the gym side, open the cafeteria side if there's a lecturer or a speaker, author, visiting author, where perhaps it's more appropriate to have that presentation in the cafeteria, we'll be able to do so.
Yeah, I guess what I was really getting at was, could you fit the whole school in there if you had to?
That's the goal.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
I don't know if you can fit the whole school and their extended family.
Oh, yeah.
That's something that we have to figure out.
Just let me just quick question. Obviously, you provided for 2-level extended classrooms, so first floor, second floor would come out. And I'm assuming you take those corridors and extend them down
Yes.
into the areas there as access? Okay.
Yes.
And one question in our prior school modernization was, and Richard, you're gonna laugh, is storage. But if you're using the platform in the gym for play or some other kind of thing, or music performance or something, where are you storing the chairs for the orchestra or the sets for play or all of the stuff that you need for that? I don't see where that's got space.
In the
faculty dining room.
The principal's office.
So we have storage that is, I mean, this is primarily gymnasium storage, but we do need to make sure that we provide that other storage. The reality is that the platform is going to be an auxiliary multipurpose classroom space for most of its life, right?
Yeah.
So usually when we go into older buildings, the stage or the platform is OTPT, right? Because that was a function that in the 1950s, when the building was built, we didn't have those spaces. So they've been repurposed. So what we commonly see, but these buildings programs have adequate instrumental and music space, but what we usually see is those end up being impromptu instrumental classrooms.
But there have been continued discussion on storage.
I was just gonna
You
say,
can
I'm wondering
imagine
how
when-
you're doing
Yeah,
that,
when we
right?
meet with the teacher groups, that comes up on a pretty regular basis. So last meeting we had with the working group, we went through all of the classroom spaces. We haven't yet really gone into detail on some of the other spaces. That's coming up.
But
our next
that was
meeting.
one of the, I mean, in of the two schools
So
we
some of this is still evolving.
toured was an issue.
Anyone else?
Just a,
Sure.
sorry, just a quick comment, and this is for not only Tecton, but Arcadis as well. I know you guys appeared at the Fall Festival. I had the opportunity to be in the company of several of the Darcy educators recently. And the banter back and forth was that they were extremely pleased at the way both companies listened and heard what they were saying. So these listening workshops that you've been doing have been very effective. And on the flip side of it, you're taking that into account. So thank you on behalf of some of the educators that I happen to be with.
And the Darcy staff's been very, very
Yes.
vocal at those meetings.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Great.
Thank you.
I had a question, and some of it goes from my viewing of the last meeting of your group. And it had to do when you were sort of trying to square the overages with the budget. And I recall on the Norton building, you went from whatever the size ceilings were down to 8.5 feet, I think.
No. We cut the height.
By 8 inches.
We cut the height of each floor by 8 inches.
Oh, okay, so,
And that's gonna be in the plenum, not in the height of the ceiling.
okay, well, I misheard. I guess the point I was making was, it made a huge millions of dollars worth of difference, okay? So, I guess my question, is there anything given up? I know it's in the plenum, but a lot goes through a plenum. You got stuff going through plenums, ducts, all kinds of stuff, wires for this, that, and the other thing. There's nothing given up besides the dollars. It's what you normally would do. Is that what we came down to? What you'd normally do?
I can tell you that the mechanical system that we've chosen helped inform that decision.
Okay.
The most painful thing the painful conversations in construction is when a contractor says, "Hey, I know you wanted 9-foot ceilings in here. Can you deal with 8-foot sticks?" It's our job to coordinate all
So
of that.
8.5-foot ceilings
No,
is about
no.
They're 10 foot.
We went from 14 feet to 13-foot floor.
Okay.
In
Okay.
floor to floor.
Okay.
Which still gives us a pretty adequate plenum space. The mechanical system that we have is a pretty efficient one when it comes to the amount of space that's required. So we're providing chilled water, hot water through piping to a chilled beam system that is delivering the temperature modulation in the chilled beam.
Mhm.
So we're not asking our air delivery systems, our ductwork, for pushing 78-degree air out of an air handling unit so that it's 72 by the time it gets to the space. So we have smaller ductwork as a result of that. So we're pushing consistent temperature air to a chill beam that is then being tempered by the piping system that's there. So that allows us to, rather than say have 3-foot by 4-foot ductwork throughout the spaces, where it's more like 24 by 30-inch ducts that we're looking at. So we feel comfortable taking that get.
Well, the other thing taken from the show that I watched, if you should call it a show or not, was the fact that you were able to introduce another way of energy efficiencies, which are going to get us back to where we had hoped to be, not necessarily with heat. Could you just explain a little bit more in detail of that? I know you guys had your questions, and it's got to be
And we're
more.
gonna do some follow-up on it.
Yeah, and I knew you were gonna do that because the expert wasn't there, but it seemed to me at first blush that the committee was happy that you were gonna get us back to the energy
Well,
situation.
right from the very beginning, the budget didn't specifically delineate a geothermal system.
No.
An all-electric school, but we had really hoped to be able to do that.
Right.
So we had budgeted or recommended to the architects that we go ahead and we design it with the geothermal system. The overage that we had to reduce at the north end allowed us to make those changes and still keep the geothermal. When we got into the Norton site, it was a slightly larger overage that we had to deal with, and there's some costs involved there, such as taking down the old building, things like that. So we were not able to keep the full geothermal system. We thought at one point we might not be able to do geothermal at all.
Right, that's what I
And
remember.
I'll let these gentlemen explain what we went to, but they call it it's a
Kind of a hybrid version.
hybrid geothermal system, which will continue to have geothermal wells, but we'll have some heat pumps that will work in tandem with that. But I'll turn
So-
it to you guys.
So for all of the classroom and special classroom spaces, the delivery of hot and heat and air conditioning will be exactly the same as the north end. Where we are providing a modulation or a hybrid system is for the gymnasium and the cafeteria. We're having package rooftop heat pumps. So what that allows us to do, because those are large volumes of spaces, and we're utilizing the air handling unit to deliver that temperature modulation. We're able to go from 50 geothermal wells, we're able to go from 88 geothermal wells to 50 geothermal wells. And each one of those, through our cost estimate process, each one of those wells is around $28,000 to $30,000. So it's a substantial savings. So one of the things that this allows us to do is we keep a no fossil fuel building, an all electric building, which still keeps you in the game for applying solar in the future and approaching a carbon neutral or carbon free building. What that does for our EUI is we go from 20 to 25 EUI, or as we write here, 22 to 25 to 25 to 28, which is still extremely efficient and keeps us in the game for Eversource incentive rebates. It's called a PAF 2 rather than a PAF 1. So kudos to Craig from Kohler Ronan who came up with it. You're right, he had the audacity to have a 25th anniversary for his company last Thursday night. So we gave him the night off, but he has clear direction that at the next NGSBC meeting to discuss this more fully, but also talk about life cycle costs and do an energy use analysis. So we can understand exactly what it is that we're signing.
Which is great. There was something else I remember very much, and this may go back to where you put the green space and stuff. I remembered, at least I think I recall correctly, that there's not enough rooftop to put solar on top of. You would have to use some of the ground space. Now, I can't know the east, west, and south, but I think the back is north of that, and the south faces the front of the school, because I don't want solar panels on that front green space, if you know what I'm saying.
Right, exactly.
And that's where a lot of the front of the building, that would be the logical space. So how are you accounting, and you don't have to have an answer, but you have to account for where those would be in a place that maybe is not ideal? And you don't have to answer that now, but I think that's a very important question. Sure. If you're gonna go all solar, and you're gonna have what we have on top of the capped dump in Cheshire in the front, that's gonna be butt ugly and impossible to deal with. And a surprise none of us wants to face.
Right. Thank you. So I do know that the engineer has done some preliminary calculations about what percentage for total electrical load can be accommodated by an available roof array. Now, part of this modification is that we're going to be putting these air handling units on the roof, which is going to minimize that space. But I mean, you're talking 5% of the total area of the roof. So.
Can I ask,
Oh, of course.
just really, is there a solar problem at the north end or only at the Norton School?
No, both schools don't have the roof to accommodate.
Neither one of them will have the,
They
neither
take
one
up
of
a
them will
lot
have
of
the.
real estate, yeah.
No, I said, I was wondering if we're talking about both schools.
I think none of us had any idea how many wells have to be dug. When you say 50 or 80, I was thinking 2 or 3. I had no idea what a well is for this stuff. I mean, obviously, it's
Costs
a ton
millions
of
of
them.
dollars.
Yeah, there's a ton of them, yeah. Okay.
There's still, while we're on the mechanics, if I could, so does this mean that you won't need to pull the gas
Correct.
down, but it also means we won't have those big tanks on the site?
Correct.
No
20,000,
tanks, no gas line.
Yeah, okay,
It'll be,
very good.
all electric,
Yeah.
no
And some,
propane, nothing like that.
and some money had been set aside because of the expected estimated cost of that, so that can help with the project then. When there,
No,
money
there
that was
no
set aside in the,
There was
money
money,
set
we had
aside.
put money aside for a solar panel, I thought.
Yeah, but that was built into the budget.
Yeah, that was built.
That
in.
was
there's like an
all-
extra $1 million
the final
we
budget-
added over
Yeah,
and
but
above.
that was actually the final number though.
Yeah,
That's not set aside somewhere.
It's in the total, it's in the
It's in-
total.
It's in the
budget.
total, but we,
okay.
Yeah,
all
it's,
right.
it's was definitely budgeted for.
were the generators budgeted?
Well, they're, yeah, you're making the north building generated, to be able to,
Both buildings
There's a
will have
generator
emergency
involved.
generation.
The question regarding the north building is whether that's also going to be a warming center.
right,
And that means a slightly larger generator and obviously
Yeah.
bigger tanks and more money. So that's been a topic of conversation with the committee in terms of cost.
So the generator will operate how? With
A diesel generator.
diesel?
Yeah. I mean, the size generator that we have priced in the project then is a 1 megawatt generator. Small potatoes.
No.
Yeah.
Pretty big.
Anything else, or you guys have anything more to say or tell?
Yeah, you
Or
haven't done the interior.
Well, I can just, I know every.
No, we're not rushing you. I just
Oh, okay.
didn't know. I mean, you know.
Yeah, I know we interrupted it.
So that's okay. We only have about 50 or 60 more slides.
Beer all night.
It's
So
a breakfast meeting.
I don't know.
Bring in
Our committee chair brings it.
Yes, my wife cooks the food. I didn't do the food.
So, real quick, we will, for design development presentation, we'll be able to get into more of the details, but we've started to go room by room. We've had a baseline interiors discussion with the working group. So just a couple of slides to say where we're headed. Couple of common themes, consistent neutral color palette across both schools, utilizing accent colors that can help be part of the learning community definition, and incorporate into playful themes and personalization within the learning communities. It was intentional to kind of have 2 grade levels grouped together in a learning community so you can accommodate some bubble classrooms. For instance, if you have 20 more 4th graders than 3rd graders, you may be able to borrow a class from the 3rd grade as you go through. So just some precedent images of some of the initial thoughts for circulation corridors, trying to pull in some of the natural elements as well as, you leveraging our graphic wall protection in some of these themes within the corridors. We know our early childhood classrooms or our pre-kindergarten classrooms have the modular box configuration that's currently built into our design. We need to make sure that we are going through that in more detail to understand exactly where those accent lights and task lighting is. Our kindergarten through grade 6 classrooms, the idea is to have a uniform classroom experience so that faculty is comfortable in any classroom that they're in. Substitute teachers know exactly what to expect when they show up. But again, neutral color palette with curated accents, pulling in some of our linear light fixtures in the classrooms to help be able to stage the different scenes within a classroom, presentation lighting, normal lighting, pulling in our tackable wall covering as well as our magnetic whiteboards. For our media center, building in some of our finishes, again, precedents for providing treatment of the wall, treatment of the themes in media centers. Acoustics are always important, so making sure that we're selecting in some of these larger spaces, making sure that we're not creating an echo within them. Picking the right acoustical treatment. Our gymnasiums need to perform well acoustically as well. And we have had discussions with the district regarding making sure that we're building in the wood athletic floor for our gyms over the court floor. I think we've yet to land on that, but.
We left that for a discussion for the next meeting. I think the specs that you were looking at them had a poured floor in one building and one floor in the other.
Right.
Dr. Solon has contacted his own staff and staff around the state. They've gotten a lot of input on the two different floors. I know Dr. Solon had mentioned to me that he was going to talk to someone from the Park and Rec about that.
Yeah, John Golick gave him a
Yeah.
long response that we shared.
Yes, and then he said he would bring a recommendation to us at our next meeting as to which way to go. And we don't have an exact price yet either on hardwood floor versus board.
Will there be guys carry wood floors in your estimate?
You have it, yeah, you have the wood floors in already.
Will there be dividers in the gym like?
Yes.
So two classes can be doing?
Typically, we'll provide one center divider, so each court will have 6 goals, backstops, so that you can run 2 classes with it. Cafeteria, here are some good precedent examples, but pulling in some of our accent colors into our furniture as well. And again, bringing in those pops of natural wood materials to kind of be that sensitive interior-exterior relationship. For specialized education, this is where we typically will be more muted in our color selections because ultimately, we want to make sure that these are places that are free of distraction and do not provide the stimulation that you otherwise are looking for in classroom spaces. So a couple of things. We saw a number of you 2 Saturdays ago at the Fall Festival. Here are just some photographs of that. Just some of the quotes that we had heard. We think that this was a really great opportunity to have some informal conversations. So for everyone that attended and stopped by our booth, I dare say that we had the most visited booth in the entire Fall Fest. So that was good. Yeah. And just we have some upcoming public engagement sessions. So we have community meetings next week, the 26th and the 27th, for the North End community and the Norton community. We then have a more informal coffee talk, October 3rd and 4th. This is more of a kind of drop in, have a more informal conversation, and then so that we can hit the people that can't make a public meeting, we have virtual Q&As for October 16th and 17th.
And a letter has gone out to every residence in town, signed by Sean, Dr. Sullivan, and myself. We want to make sure everyone, whether you have students in the school or not, has an opportunity to give some input.
There was
I
good
talking-
feedback on that.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, people were happy about that.
So we're hoping we're going to get some good turnout.
Well, we did get a lot of people, I didn't know there were schools coming.
Well, there's still
I've
some
had
of
a few
that.
of those,
What are you
yes.
doing with the schools?
They still don't know we're building the park.
You see, you see that on
Yeah.
community forum, all of what's going on over at Barton.
I drove by the other
Forget
day.
sometimes that not everyone is in the know. So we're doing what we can to at least give people an opportunity.
Absolutely.
You're doing a great job.
And we thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very good meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, thank
you.
Appreciate it. Thank you,
Thank
Rich.
you.
I'm not rushing you out.
I will just summarize by saying the team has been fantastic to work with. The committee has been fantastic to work with. I think we're making some wonderful headway, and I'm very hopeful that we're going to see 2 unique but similar schools when we're done. Each one will have its own character.
Right.
But they will have very similar interior spaces and educational pieces, and the staff from both schools have been very involved with the design and what's coming. So they seem to be very excited by the possibilities.
Well, this is most appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank
And we're
you.
very appreciative of your support here too, because I do watch it. It's usually not live, it's on rerun, but.
You told me we have the #1 watch show on.
Definitely.
Yeah, right.
Literally tens of viewers. The deal, sure. It's blowing up.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Trying to listen to those meetings sometimes are hard.
Yeah, it can be, yeah. That's why I have this.
Do you want to plug in your presentation too?
Right?
Okay.
So,
That was your sense of humor.
what are you talking about? We have 35 doing
Thank
now.
you.
Another
Good
presentation? Okay.
night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Very much.
Different seeing him in person than I'm.
Yeah.
What I watch
Yes,
like, oh,
exactly.
And it's usually
Like
at
that,
the end of
Andrew's-
my long day,
Andrew's still
so
here
I'm
too.
staying
Poor
safe.
Andrew.
Okay, let me see.
I'll watch
I
one
sit there and watch.
Okay, we're gonna segue into the Bartlett report. And Sean, I'll turn that over to you.
That's fine, this will be brief, but should have in your packet some nice drone
Yeah.
photos
Yeah.
from our Public Works folks who've been monitoring. These are just a sampling of progress photos that we've been documenting for the project and put together after video and things like that. But you'll see the project, how far we've come. And of course, if you, I'm sure you all saw it, it's Fall Festival. Right the day before Fall Festival, on that Friday, the 4 light towers went up, the LED light towers. So it's
Yep.
finalized now, but it's kind of one of those first vertical elements that lets you kind of really see and recognize pieces that we've seen from all the plans. So that was very exciting.
Just in time for the thunder and lightning.
It was
Yeah.
literally hours before.
Yeah.
Pete Dorita texted me a drone shot of them being, finalized and installed. And 3 p.m. By 5 p.m. those lightning storms came through, disrupting the Friday night activities. But they're all great, and that's going on. The project remains on schedule. A few items coming up that I'll either circulate with subcommittee. We should probably pull together a meeting for a few change order items that have popped up. Probably either later this week or early next week, just a quick get together. But also maybe circulate if there's things that the full council wants to see. Some of the decisions are color of the roof for the bathroom building, the paint inside, the paint of the floor, and Andrew and I were looking at some examples. A lot of decisions to make though, and make sure we have some consistency in the park and some thoughts. So be looking for some of that. And then in the area, future picnic grove area that we were getting a change order for, more complete sort of manicuring of the area there, providing some grass seed and some landscaping and grading of that area. That site work is ongoing. They do need to do another round of some of the soil testing. They had some hits on things that they want to double check and see what's going on there. So that's something that'll be coming soon. We'll have to figure out what, if anything, we have to do. But again, there's the normal project stuff as we kind of pivot a little bit through the project. But again, overall, the contractors have been great to work with. The ENS controls and our folks that go inspect things have always been very impressed with the quality that we're getting. I think that's really important. And so again, can't say enough about
And
how
it's
that's
needly done. I mean, when you go by,
Yeah.
it's organized and
Yeah.
very well
Definitely.
managed.
they do a great
Yeah,
job,
right.
and they're all there, and they're there. And Pete or Nick Throot is there every time I stop by, and they're always very accommodating and kind of handling everything going on there. So it's kind of a perfect project, I think. So hopefully stay on track. And again, that's really the conclusion of my.
Terrific. Well, it definitely looks like progress is being made, that's for sure. Okay, we're gonna move on to new business. So we're gonna begin with the approval of the amendment to the fire department pension plan. Mr. Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution 091923-2, May I be permitted to summarize?
I think that is reasonable.
Okay, thank you. The Budget Committee reviewed this earlier, and this is really an implementer. It's allowing us to adjust the resolution we approved last summer, it's almost just over a year ago, that as of July 1, 2022, the plan would allow those at 60 years old to retire rather than 65. And there are some people that fell in between because it didn't take effect until just recently, and you can't go back without permission to go back. So now it's allowing the handful of people who are old enough to have retired and collect a pension as of July 1, 2022. They have a one-time opportunity to go back. Now, some are not going back because they continue to serve and serve longer, and you continue to accrue and add to what you're earning. But it is a fairness issue, and it's negligible cost.
I know that was a good description. I'm not sure it rises to the level of a motion. Without you reading the whole motion, I don't think you need to.
Okay.
But there's been no second. And I think
Okay.
Sean wanted to add
Oh,
something.
no, after the second.
I will, yeah.
Okay, so we have a second. Okay. Because otherwise it was perfect. I really got rid of second.
Thank you.
But it was a quick second.
Yeah, if I could too, and I
Please.
just wanted to recognize, Dan Ford is here, been very patiently waiting
Behind
in
there.
support here.
Sorry, Dan.
I remember, Dan, of course, from the last iteration of this
Yeah.
first coming through council, and of course, I just wanted to, first of all, recognize his steadfast, commitment to working on this issue over the last 4 to 5 years. When we really started this conversation, I know 4 or 5 years ago.
I wasn't alone.
And you weren't alone, and I was gonna say, right, and Jim as well, so,
Everybody's helping.
again, and I don't know, Jim, you wanted to add anything? I know you were.
Just that you mentioned it would have a minimal cost, it actually has no cost. This was planned on, and it was included in the last actuarial evaluation, including the cost of paying these people.
Right, so no cost compared to what we expected.
budgeted, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's really just the language that wasn't present that would allow for that benefit to occur when this was effective.
And then, I don't know, Dan, if there's anything else you wanted to add?
No, this is just both sides cinching up some loopholes that we wanted to make sure we're fair and equitable to both the fire department, firefighters, and corporation, as well as the town itself. So just making sure everybody's on a level playing field.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions from my colleagues? Okay, hearing none, I guess I'll call for a vote on this. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Those present.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for
much.
hanging.
Sorry it's so late, but
Uh,
to see the schools.
Yeah.
B is the acceptance of a property donation. And that will go to.
Okay. Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution 091923-3, whereas Blue Trails LLC has offered to donate a portion of property on lot 4 of the 679 Mountain Road subdivision to the town of Cheshire. Now therefore be it resolved that the town council accepts said property from Blue Trails LLC and authorizes the town manager to execute any and all documents necessary to consummate said acceptance in the form and upon the terms and conditions as presented at this meeting. And be it further resolved that the deed as executed will be filed on the land records of the town of Cheshire.
I'll second that.
Okay, discussion? There's a map attached.
Yeah, there's a map, It's property that was, donation of a portion of property abutting town property on Mountain Road.
Right. Essentially, this is an expansion of the existing easement, or at least a portion of all of that. Any other questions, comments? I have one question, Sean. Is this executed immediately or post-construction and the closing of lot 4 if they should build on it? What is the effective date on some of this? It's not gonna impact my vote, but I didn't know if they reserved the right to really say it's ours.
I've heard nothing to the contrary. My understanding was it was.
So they don't work
immediately,
near it,
and-
it's not in a
Right,
working
they've
area. it's
accounted
just-
for the area that they did not want, because it could be on that same property, should we use it for something else.
Right.
But other than that, I have not heard of any.
Okay, okay, so there's no reason it's gonna be covered in any way. It's ours as a vote. Okay, I'll call for a vote then. All those in favor? Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Those present. Okay, C is the approval of stipulated tax appeal settlement, with a possible executive session. We probably should go into executive session. I think budget thought we should. I remember sort of the sense in the room.
Yep,
Agreed?
Yep.
Yes.
So we'll just give time.
Do you want to do that now?
You
or
wanna
do
do
wanna
that at
wait?
the end, when we,
Whatever we want to do, I don't care.
when we
if
go
do
into
it at the end.
executive session?
We can
You
do
don't
it.
have to take an action at the end, so that's up to you, right? But you can do, that's fine too, it's up to you.
Rather than clear the room,
Yeah.
although corporate is still.
Well, it's different to clear the room now, we clear it later.
All right.
This way she can go home.
Good, all right,
Because
then
we
I
have-
move we
we
go
have
into
a-
executive session to discuss pending claims and litigation.
Okay.
And inviting in town manager and the assessor, sorry.
Right, finance director.
And the finance director.
Right.
Doesn't affect you, right, chief?
I can leave.
Yeah.
I can leave now.
No, you can't.
So give Mike just a second.
Yeah.
to
And Noel.
Stop the stream.
And then we'll have,
Noel gets to stay.
Oh, okay.
we'll have